And welcome back to ScavTalk, everyone. Today's episode, we got tons of minor changes, some major changes to sound, balancing changes, and potentially Tarkov ray tracing coming in the future? Question mark? Exclamation point?
Big question mark.
So, Giga, what you been up to, man? How's Tarkov been treating you lately?
Tarkov's been good. It's been okay. We've been continuing on with the Lightkeeper. You know what? We're actually really close. Like, once you've finished getting the CFTM radios and killing people on Lighthouse for assessment,
Yeah.
if you already have the SJ9 stims, which I did because I had them from Scavs and just kept them because I heard people complaining about them. If you have those things, it's really not that bad. And we're basically like one quest away from meeting the Lightkeeper now, which was quite surprising. I was surprised how quickly we rattled through it. It's like kill the 20 guys on Lighthouse, then craft a bunch of stims for the second part, and then the third one is basically you need to kill 10 raiders on labs. So that was actually quite entertaining and fun. We had like some interesting ones there. It's like they've just buffed all of the I didn't even write this down actually, but I've just remembered there because they've just buffed all of the XP for like bosses and things. So we went through and killed like a bunch of raiders. I can't remember how many it was. It was like a lot, more than we needed. I think we killed like 2 or 3 or something. And then I ended up killing like 15 in one raid. It was like crazy. It ended up with like 16k XP or something like that from like the slabs raid. It was just like, man, that's cool. So it's good. We're on to this last one. It's basically you find the transponder in Lighthouse somewhere, and there's like a bunch of spots. We did that. Went back to Lightkeeper. Then he says, "Oh yeah, it's gonna work now." So you go to the Lighthouse and it doesn't. Well, you go to the bridge and it doesn't work. You have to go back to the mechanic, and he's like, "Oh, you need this flash drive now." To then flash it with the thing, and then it will do the BP whatever. Finding the flash drive is like actually really annoying. So we spent like all stream yesterday trying to find it, and it wasn't even just like trying to find it. Like all of the spots are in the road camp.
Oh,
And
yeah,
20,
dude, that
and there's
quest.
20 spots,
I,
and it's randomly somewhere there. Honestly, I was like, we got in and had a proper go at the road camp once, and the rest of the time I spent fighting players. Like I just didn't get an opportunity. Like by the time that you've like got there and like and people like I was getting like so much advice from chat or whatever. Like I'm uncomfortable with fighting in the road camp anyway, right?
Yeah.
I was just like I don't really like fighting there. Like the old route that I used to do up onto the really high mountains, that's full of claymores now. So like you apparently you can do it, but you need to know exactly where they are because they're hidden and they'll just like suddenly explode you. And I've had that happen. So I was like, I don't really want to just spend the whole stream like gearing up and getting blown up by claymores. So let's just avoid that because I haven't looked at the map properly and I haven't practiced it. So we really should try and do that before we do that. So I was trying to go down the other way. But yeah, just like I went up on the big sniper rock with the AXMC one time and fought like 3 different people over there and ended up not even getting in the road camp. Like 2 times I spawned at Southern Road. So I was just like, I'm so far away. One time I just extracted, and the second time I was like, screw it. I'm not going to just like leave again. Like it just keeps putting me down at Southern Road over and over and over. I was like, this is brutal. So the one time we got in and we managed to search 8 of the 20 spots, but it wasn't there. Unfortunately, we got the unlucky dice roll, I guess, because it was like nearly a 50-50 as to whether we'd find it or not. We didn't find it on that occasion. And then, it's just like, other than that, I just spent the whole time just like dying, battling through people. Like we went at night, which does seem to be easier, but like me playing at night, playing sniping, which I'm not very good at, in the road camp, which I'm not very good at night, which I'm not very good at. It was just like, I actually felt like the most, I think chat was quite enjoying it because it was like the most uncomfortable that I've been playing Tarkov in a long time. I was just like, there's nothing about this raid that I like, and there's nothing comfortable about it. I'm not confident with the positions, or the map, or the play style, or the time of day, the gun I'm using, like all the AI. I was just like, this is just like, it's like excruciating, right? And it's kind of fun if you're practicing, but like to do that on stream as well, I was just like, I feel very exposed right now. It's like, this is like all of my weak points all on show. And I think people quite enjoyed it actually, because lots of people were just like, well, that's Tarkov. That's how it's supposed to be. Because like, I'm kind of used now to just being on the stream, and if you die, you die, whatever. But like, you kind of like, you just know the flow and the vibe, and like, even if you die a bunch of times, you're just like, I know I did wrong and da da da. But like, I was going into these raids just like, I don't even know if I want to go night or day. I don't know which route I want to take. I was like, I just freaking don't even know what I'm doing, guys. Like, I'm so uncomfortable completing this thing. But we got some cool PvP. Like, it was quite fun. We had like this insane fight against a dude with it was like actually 2 player scouts. Like there was a guy like pushed us up on the really tall rock and killed him with a 5.7, and he had like a meta. Oh gosh, my Windows system sounds are just going crazy. Turn off, please. He had like a meta HK416 with like 995 in it, and we just like slayed the guy with subsonic in a little 5.7 pistol, which is cool. But then a player scav turned up, and I could not hit the guy. We had this like crazy, where I'm like literally like nugget style,
Yeah.
with like just my thorax all on red. Because this guy's got like HP in his SKS or something, and just like nearly like borderline murders me. I used all 3 magazines from this guy's gun and kill him with like 3 rounds to spare in the final mag. Of like all them 995 and 85501. I just like cannot kill the guy with this HK. And people were just like, dude, you should have just kept the 5.7 out. Like,
just spent like half a mil on a single scav and ammo alone. Yeah.
Like seriously, it was ridiculous. Like the same thing again in the road camp. I had this RFB. He was like shooting this guy. He like shot at him twice, repositioned, shot at him again, just couldn't find him. Eventually, I think he just like camped up for ages. Eventually, he comes down this stairwell unexpectedly and just like took him out with the 5.7. Everyone's like, dude, the 5.7 is the hero of this stream. It's got like all the good guns that I had and all the big stuff with all the big rounds and whatever. Just like, nothing happening. But 5.7 pistol, real hero. So anyway, we're really close. I thought we might be able to do it yesterday. I thought we might even meet Lightkeeper yesterday, but it turns out you need to spend 12 hours flashing the stupid thing onto the transcode of like responder. So even if we'd found it, we would still not have done it because we have to wait 12 hours for the gating for it to actually go onto the thing. And then you have to go meet him. So I'm just like, all right, well, I guess
it puts you on like a 12-hour cooldown before you can do the next quest, basically.
There's quite a lot with 24-hour cooldowns in between each one, which is kind of annoying. But this one, you have to
crafting cooldown.
It's a craft in the Intel Center.
I got you.
So you get the drive, and then you have to like flash the
right
the responder thing, whatever it's called, and that takes 12 hours, and you have to have power the whole time, otherwise it restarts.
Interesting.
And then, once it's done, it's kind of weird. But then once it's done, then you can just go and then you can visit him. So we're so close, but we've got to solve the road camp. And yeah, it's just like it's a real Achilles heel for me. It really is.
I think that's like the antithesis. Maybe that's not the right word, but that's like the thing for Twitch Tarkov stream is you're either the protagonist or you're the antagonist. The protagonist is you trying, basically suffering through Tarkov, and everyone eating their popcorn, watching it, and enjoying it, and then the opposite side is you're the antagonist where you're just ruining people's days in Tarkov, and people are also eating popcorn and watching it. That's basically Tarkov streaming in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people either want to like experience the suffering third hand, right. Or second hand, whatever. But or they want to experience other people being trolled. Yeah, effectively.
That's great.
So, yep. So, bunch of stuff has changed.
Yes.
What should we jump into first? Should we just look at balancing the balancing changes? And this one actually, I thought this was kind of interesting. So they came and said new balancing changes to Escape from Tarkov, updated equipment selling prices, updated equipment repair prices, adjusted melee weapon damage, lowered the Galvian Cayman hybrid helmet to class 3 for whatever reason.
No, that's the gray one that they added a few patches ago.
Yeah, that's finally made only. It's not on traders.
Oh, it's not? I thought
no.
Because
as far as I'm aware,
it can take that weird like jaw, class 2 jaw, and like not a face shield, but like
the thing. Yeah, it's like the eyes shield, but it's like class 2. Like the whole thing sucks, honestly.
Yeah, but it sells for a lot.
It does sell for a lot. It's got the thing that goes on top is the applique, I think, and I think is that only class 4, I think, and it gives you like another ricochet chance or something. It's a very weird helmet.
Yeah, it's the weirdest comment. It's like, it's weird.
It's like a combination of all the useless things.
I think it might be class 2 on top. I can't remember, but yeah,
I can't remember now.
So
they've nerfed that to class 3 now. So now it's like, it doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
And then they changed the 6B47 Ratnik helmet, both versions, to aramid, away from, I think it was aluminium before, because it's aramid in real life.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
They changed it to aramid, and that's kind of like, as a standalone point, that's kind of interesting because they didn't change the durability. Right, the Ratnik has had 30 durability forever, and weirdly, what that does, because if anybody remembers from the various armor guides and stuff, like you just don't get aramid armor above about class 2. And that's because it's like insane when it comes to the destructibility stat, which is 0.25. So it basically like from an effective durability standpoint, it basically like quadruples the durability. So the Ratnik actually had, or is it 20? Is it Ratnik 25? I can't remember now. But
I think it's
basically, it had
25.
like
Yeah.
I think it's 25. It's been 25 for ages. But what this has basically done is aluminium kind of sucks for destructibility, and aramid is like cracked for
Yeah.
durability. And so this has gone from like effective durability, like real durability 25, actual durability like 40, and it's gone to like 100 effective.
Yeah.
It's like over double better. Not that it really matters, but it means that Matnix basically won't take
Yeah.
damage anymore, really.
It could matter in like the very earliest, like the first hour of wipe when people are using like PST.
Yeah, it'll matter against PST, actually. That's true.
You know, maybe some other like, you know, T45 rounds or what. I can't remember the
Probably anything up to about the UMP. Something like that. Like FMJ, because that's 25 pen, I think.
It's going to be questionable.
So
Like
it's around there.
You might be able to tank. Let's say you tank a headshot with your helmet. You might be able to take more headshots now that it's aramid versus it being aluminum, like it used to be.
Yeah, and it also probably repairs better too.
So
it should do.
It's gonna be great for insurance. Just saying.
Yeah, not that it wasn't great before, right? Now it's the insurance king. Exactly. Yeah. So what's interesting about this, before we dive into some of the other details in there, it says at the end, and I feel, partly proud. Like, it's obviously not just me. There's like lots of people in the community asking about stuff like this. But one of the suggestions from my thing was to increase the trader prices for certain gear, for like PvP gear, because it's just, the gulf is just so wide. And we talked about this before. I think there's Redutem's like 240k on Ragman, and they sell for 60 or whatever. Like, the gulf is just like it's unnecessarily wide. And they wrote here, like, we continue to process community feedback on various aspects and mechanics of the game on social networks. These balancing changes are among the planned changes to encourage the PvP aspects of the game. So I'm just like, hell yeah, that sounds like really targeted. Like, it clearly, it's not, obviously not just me, because loads of people are talking about it, but like, that was exactly what I was talking about as well. So, my video is like a piece of the, I guess the
pie.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because they specifically say community feedback and social networks, and it's for PvP. So I'm just like, yeah, I feel proud about that. It's good.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I saw like at least 2 people did React videos for your video.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Like, dang, Giga made it, dude.
It was cool. Yeah, Tweak did a React video of mine, which I thought was neat. And like, he had some interesting stuff to say about it. So go and watch that if you haven't, if you're intrigued to see his take on my solution, which I get. Again, I don't think it's perfect, right? But it's like food for thought. And this is the thing. It's like BSG obviously will do whatever they want. And so they can like pick and choose the best of all the suggestions across the community, right? It doesn't have to be like one person's solution fully rolled out. Like, that's not the way this stuff works. It's just like you're giving them ideas, right? It's like, when you ask for sort of feedback on something and someone gives you an idea and you're like, well, I don't like that specifically, but that's given me an idea to do whatever, right? Like, if people are proposing solutions, it's like, okay, well, maybe we don't like that exactly, but that doesn't fit with our plan. However, we could do this that we didn't think about. Like, that's kind of the idea. But yeah, so in terms of the actual changes, like there's like repair cost rebalancing, which I don't think it matters that much. But the biggest one, I think, is the equipment selling prices rebalance. So some of the stuff went up, some of the stuff went down. There's a huge list.
It's massive.
It's a massive, massive list. But there was like some particular points in here that I'm like a big fan of. So things like the Bagari rig, right? You'd never take that before. That was 58k for the traders.
Rig?
That's the other cheap class 5. That's not the Corund and not the
the new one with the big
the big rig. It's got like huge space in it.
It's really heavy. Yeah, tons of penalties.
It's the go to reserve and go out to a manhunt rig.
Interchange.
No backpack extra. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was 58k before, and that now sells for 90k.
That's a big jump. That's almost.
It's a big jump.
Double.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that went down. There's like the belt A, belt B. It almost seemed to me, because I was trying to look for a pattern. I was like wondering whether they had done kind of like more explicitly what I'd said, which was that stuff that's banned, has that gone up, and stuff that's able to be sold on the flea, has that like maybe come down a bit or whatever? Because like, if it can be sold on the flea, it doesn't really matter what the trader price is, particularly. Like, it sort of does, but not as much. If it's a valuable item, like, it'll go for way over the trader price, right? The trader value only really matters if the item is not sought after. If that makes sense, because it's like the floor, isn't it? if no one likes the item, no one uses them. Like the Belt A, Belt B rigs is a good example. Nobody really uses those, and so the price on the flea is just the trader price, right? That's just the floor limit. So they've decreased the price of that on the traders. That's fair enough, I think, because we don't have dynamic traders and people don't really like those. So yeah, we can decrease the price of it. Whereas something that's banned, like the Bagari rig, like should be way more. You can't sell it to anyone other than the traders. Like the Altin went up a tiny bit and the Reese went down a little bit. Like not that it really matters because you're probably not going to sell those to traders either. Yeah, so some of the helmets were a little bit strange. I don't know why they went up or down the way that they did. One that is like kind of big, I guess, like some of the other bigger helmets that you can only get like super high levels. Like the Fast MT went from like 70k to 95k for the tan one, and like 80k to 100k for the black one. So getting those off people is like quite decent now to sell. I tend not to use them, so I ended up getting one of these. I think maybe it was one of the X-Fills actually, but they're really expensive to sell now. So you actually think like, damn, I'll take this helmet. This is cool, which I think is nice. And then there's another couple. So the LZSH 2DTM was 60k. That's now 90k. That's like the class 4 with the class 4 face shield. It's the one I did that video about recently-ish. So that's pretty big. And then I may be skipping a few bits. If there's anything else, then actually, yeah, there's like one thing that's, given we're still talking about face shields, they changed the Altin face shield from 27k to 42k.
That's a lot.
Now that is a lot. But what this matters more for is this prevents people doing what I was doing. This is actually less about like rewarding people because nobody really uses the Altin, right? And like so you hardly ever find Altin face shields. But this stops people because no one can buy the Altin. The weird side effect because the face shield is on the flea, but the Altin is not.
Right.
And so the Altin is not purchasable.
Yeah.
I just think the face shield just shouldn't be there.
I agree.
To be honest with you.
If you're gonna do one, just do the other.
Well, maybe it should be a BART or something.
Well,
because like with anything breaks, then what are you gonna do, right?
Part of the issue, which I think you're getting to, is that people would just sell their face shield and just buy a new one, right?
Exactly. And they were 26k because no one had the Altin, so no one had any use for them. So they're selling them on the flea at the trader value. So they've increased the trader value, so now they're probably going at 42k instead now.
But it's probably the same thing, going to be the same thing though, because the demand hasn't really changed, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it makes it a little bit more expensive for that. It doesn't really fundamentally change anything, I agree, but it's going in the right direction broadly, even though it doesn't really have much impact.
The one thing that I did notice that was interesting, which you kind of touched on, is like I noticed a lot of the rigs got reduced, and I wonder if part of that is I don't know why, like specifically the non-armor rigs. Maybe there's some that got increased. I don't know. I didn't look extensively, but I always just kind of felt that there was something like your scav early game was just so powerful too, because you could get or find the ones that are like 20. Like, was it like 6
and those ones?
Is it 20 or 18? It's like 6. Sorry, it's 10 2x2s, right? 2x1s.
I think so in those ones, yeah.
And that's insane for like stash storage, just general looting. Like if you could wear one out and put one in your backpack, like, this is really good. And they were so cheap too. They were like cheaper than the Vortex as well. Like typically, but the Vortex sold more. Like I'm not really sure why they did that. I just wonder if maybe it's to sort of like disincentivize people from, rat packing, like filling up rigs and putting in the backpacks and taking them out.
Maybe. I guess people still do it, but it's just like a rebalance of that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
I would like to know the reason why they did that. That's the interesting part.
I'd love to know some of these things, especially just like why did they change this to this, or like why did they tweak this value by like a tiny amount? It's like it'd be fascinating to know. Like why didn't they just keep it the same?
Yeah, like I'm looking, like all the rigs I'm looking here. Looks like they got reduced. I don't know what some of these are. But yeah, the velocity one, the MPPV got reduced.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Vortex 3.
And that's the other weird thing too. We'll move on, but it's just weird because like the trader price often informs the flea market price. So like the it's pretty rare for stuff like unless it's in extremely high demand, then the price will adjust and it'll be higher than the trader usually. But just most of the time, it's usually like sitting right around the trader price for like a lot of these gear items in general. I mean, there's a lot of variation, but like the rig specifically. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe they did that to kind of, but when you want to increase it, I don't know. It's just interesting, is what I'm
It
gonna
is.
settle on. I would love to
It
know
is. It
why.
is. It is fascinating. So there was a couple of other ones that are like kind of big. So the Slick didn't really move, but something like the Zabralo now, that used to sell for a lot before, right? That was 240k to Ragman. That now sells for 358k to Ragman, which is enormous. The Gen 4 selection, like the high mobility one went from 73 to 121. The full protection went from 123 to 180, and the assault kit went from 85 to 123. So that's massive. And then there was the one in particular that I was talking about, which is the Reduce M. Right, so that you bought it for 240k and sold it for 60k. It was just crazy. They increased the Ragman repurchase price to that from 64,000 rubles to 128k. It's a lot better. A lot better.
Which one was that?
That was the Reduce M, the Class 5.
Oh yeah.
Not the Samurai, but the other one, the green apron.
One. Yeah, I like that one.
That one. I like that rig actually, or that armor. It's pretty good now. And now that the debuffs have been reduced, and now that my strength is about 30, I can wear that with a light-ish gun and not be overweight at this point, which is kind of cool. And I've been using it a little bit because it is really strong. It's one of the strongest because that got a buff as well in the wave of stuff like a couple of months ago. So that's got really high effective durability, and it's only thorax and stomach. It's like arguably one of the best armors in the game, I think.
You just have to have the stats to back it up, really.
Kind of, yeah. And like you can fix it a bit if you use Meldonin. That does resolve the situation a little bit because you get some more strength from that. I've been using Meldonin quite frequently these days, just because it's like you get the extra strength boost when you spawn in, and it lasts for, I can't remember how long it is. It's like 10 minutes or something. Like or maybe it's longer. Maybe it's 15. Yeah, I think it's 15 minutes. Meldonin.
10 or 15, something like
that's for a long time. Because I think Adorbos is like the most, and that's half an hour, and Meldonin's 15 minutes. Which is enough for like the first sort of whole flurry of the raid or whatever. Normally by then you've got some things, so you're overweight anyway. So by the time it runs off, you're like, okay, well, I would have been overweight regardless. It doesn't really matter. But until then, you've got like the stamina for the first bit and stuff. Like I really like Meldonin. I think it's good. But yeah, so the same thing with Duke T5, 116 to 160k. So like a lot of these like big armors, those have gone up by quite a lot. Like a lot of the plate carriers, even the smaller stuff, things like the AVS. A lot of the class 4s that you use to like pack efficiently when you find them on someone was 53, is now 78. There was the Strandhog, yeah, that's now 70k rather than 45. The MMAC is now 58k rather than 37. Like these things are like almost double for like class 4s that you're using to pack and all of that kind of stuff, which is cool. I think that's decent. I mean, there's a lot here, and then yeah, all the bags went up by a bit as well. Yeah. So that's like, I think that's the most impactful thing. Like the next section was like a repair costs. I don't really even know how to read it properly. It says like the price for repair of 1 point of equipment durability by mechanic. So like how that applies to kits and things, I'm not really sure. But it seems like all the repair costs have gone down somewhat across the board, broadly. I don't think there's any point like delving into that too specifically. But there's like a huge list of all of those. And so everything seems to have gone down, which is nice. And then they upped the melee damage on everything by a little bit. Not much, just by a few points. But I mean, the melee damage is super low, right? Like the most damage that you can do is with the Tiger, which is 55. And that's using the stab. Like melee is still really low in terms of damage, but okay, so like nobody ever uses it. Like I don't even carry a melee weapon half the time.
Wait, they also buffed Tagilla's hammer.
They did.
Why though? But wait, Giga, if I'm reading this right, now the chop damage is now 103, where it used to be 93. Does that mean he can one-shot you when he doesn't stab you? Because
I think if he hits you in the thorax and you don't have any...
Oh, I guess it doesn't matter either way, right?
Never mind. It doesn't really matter. It's like if you're wearing armor, it still helps, I think. I don't actually know how melee works with armor, honestly. I don't know how that functions, but... So yeah.
I don't know. I think it ignores it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, that's not really of any consequence, but it's just interesting to note that they have looked at that and changed something for some reason. And they left the Kibber Arms Tactical Tomahawk alone. Who knows why? They changed everything else. basically, except for that one. They said, nah, that one doesn't. That one's fine. I think it's just interesting, right?
Yeah. Who knows? I think it's overall, I think it remains to be seen if this is going to be enough to make PvP incentivize PvP more for making money. Because I think that's what a lot of people say when they say PvP is not rewarding. I think what they mean is not as rewarding as just looting the map, right, and extracting. So we'll see. It's kind of, I don't know. Is going from 60k to 120k, is it worth taking that armor now? Because that's kind of that's the big downside of looting gear in general. Since the weight system came in, is like you have to carry the weight of it, right? And it's super not ideal because the value of it. So that's been changed. And the other downside is you would have to repair it once you've, assuming you killed someone wearing it. So it's like you're sinking even more money. It's like you lost even more money out of it. So it's weird. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think it's enough on its own, but I mean, it does help with like frauding stuff. So you're just like, there's like a half health Reduce M, and you're like, okay, well, I'll fraud my armor because it's busted, and I'll take the Reduce M, and then I'll repair that. And like, if I don't want to wear it, for example, then like I can go and sell that. I can repair it and now sell it, and that makes money rather than repairing it and selling it. Like, it definitely doesn't make money like it used to not. I mean, you have to be. This is actually an interesting point for people in general, is that you have to be a bit careful now about the repair kits, because it used to just be like a no-brainer to just repair and sell everything. But the repair kits are really expensive. I think I've got Tarkov open. I'll go and check. Like, when I last looked, they were 850k, which I still think, if you're using the repair kit for yourself, repairing your own armor, I still think that's worth it, especially if you're repairing class 5 and above. But if you're repairing items to sell, often it actually ends up not being worth it because it's quite a lot of money. Let me just quickly go and see where the bottom of the market is now. Oh, it's actually gone down a little bit. Maybe it was prime time when I was looking. But now there's one here for 720. I'm actually going to buy that.
Still a lot,
but it's a lot of,
compared to when I was playing. That's a lot of rubles.
Yeah, I mean, we can just do like, I've got a busted armor. Like, some of these armors I keep busted just for the purposes of like doing this exact thing. Once you've repaired it, you can never see the numbers again. So if we try to repair a hex grid from 9 to 50, that will use 74 points of durability, which of the 1200 durability total, that's 6%. And then I just bought this thing for 720k. So that's going to cost me 44,000 rubles to repair the hex grid to full, which is not crazy, but it's also not 12k like it used to be. And then like Prapol's cost is 81k, if you see what I mean. So like, it's still very much worth buying these kits if they're under a mil, if you're repairing armors that are high value for yourself. Because they have a lot of durability, and it's like half the price. Like, yeah, it's 720k, even up to 1,000,000 rubles, right? It's a half to a third discount, which is kind of interesting. So like, I mean, I remember looking back in the day when this came out in the first place, and like, I estimated the rough value of a repair kit, like the fair value of a repair kit, probably to be something like 1.5 million rubles. If you're repairing stuff on your own and it's all high tier kits, I think. So anything under, and also it's better than repairing it with Prapor too.
Yeah.
So, because it's somewhere between skier and mechanic.
Yep.
Which is pretty interesting.
Sorry, I was distracted and laughing because VSG just posted up-to-date spreadsheet of ammo and their characteristics in Escape from Tarkov, and it looks like a BSG sanctioned official shareable Google chart. That's an ammo chart, and there's tabs for older patches. Patch 0.9. If you look at patch 0.9, there's a funny meme. I wish I could read Russian, but it's like officially approved by Nick. I'm assuming that's Nikita, and it's Patrick.
This is literally breaking news. I cannot believe that they've posted this. This has literally just been posted now.
Yeah.
On Twitter. Okay, so they've got ruble prices, the damage, the pen, accuracy, recoil, projectile. You know what I'm really fascinated by? Is this fragmentation chance column. Can you even do anything with this? I don't.
You
It
could
looks like the whole sheet's on
probably,
lockdown here.
yeah,
Oh, you
actually,
can
why
probably
is it
actually
so?
you can probably Control A, Control C, Control V it into another spreadsheet.
Yeah, but it
Let me see
looks,
if I could.
why is it so heavily locked down?
I don't really. I guess they don't want people, doing
Oh,
anything.
it's a doc. It's not a sheet. Interesting. What the
It's a doc.
Yeah, I think no, it says spreadsheets. I don't know why it's so heavily locked down. Like usually you can like there is no like Google Docs top UI bar, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
usually you can like open and copy into your there's like a link to like copy into a sheet so you can modify it. But this is like giga lockdown.
Yeah, and it's like I just tried copy pasting and it's not come in a very nice format. Maybe I can do it from here instead. Because I'm interested to see what they have to say. Because the fragmentations, it's just all in like it's in point ones. I want to adjust this to something else. Um, yeah, I can't make it work properly anyway. I'll have to have a look through because I wanted to format it to percentages because it's easier to read.
Right.
Because like fragmentation is notoriously weird right now, right?
Yeah, I mean we could
Yeah,
skip to
like
where's
55A1, it says 34%. I think that's the same as it is on the usual thing.
where's rip around at?
RIP is one, so yeah, so it's. I think it's the same as the EFT amateur.
Yeah, okay.
I'd be surprised if it was any different.
Yeah.
To be fair, this is cool because they've got all the heat factors and the durability burn modifiers, which
Yeah,
like
that's
that
really
actually
nice to
isn't on the.
have.
That's not on the ballistic spray.
Yeah. Huh.
Just remove HTML view from link. So
Someone giving secret hacks.
oh
Oh, okay. Oh,
oh that
okay. I
does
see.
work.
I
Ah,
see.
look at this. Oh, I see. I see. I see. That's actually even looks nicer. They've got like better formatting. Fascinating. This is like derailed
Uh,
everything.
oh
Okay,
yeah.
so I don't think there's anything really crazy in here.
Yeah, I
It
can't.
doesn't look like.
I mean, I'm hoping this isn't like, hey, we changed a bunch of stuff. Here's the spreadsheet. I'm hoping that's not what this is. But it's
Yeah, I
just
mean, I guess we should have a look through like M85, 501, 49, and
I
44, and 56, 54, 37. That's the same. Where's M905, 42, and 53? That's the same. Where's BP? Go and see for anything that's like actually crazy. 58, 47. That's the same. 35, 761. I think it's the same. Just off the top of my head, just looking through on the couple of like big boys. I can't see anything that's different here. Just from a
interesting.
very cursory glance of a few, but I'm fascinated that they've even posted this.
So there's 14 uh columns or 14 different bits of information, and only 7 of them are available in the game. So half of them are in the game, the other half is not. What's stopping them from putting the other half in the game? I don't understand. Like,
Maybe they just like
arguably, the half that is in
missing
the game
answer.
is some of the more worthless ones, like the weight. Do I like how much does that really matter? Uh, accuracy percentage. How much does that really
This is
matter?
huge, though. This is massive that they've posted this. Like in the
Yeah,
information
but
is we
just
haven't learned anything right from this information, but this is
put it in the
huge
game, dude.
that they've like just that they've posted this. This shows a really huge change in intention.
Just put it in the game, dude.
Yeah, they should.
It's just I don't understand.
They should. But maybe this means that they might.
Hmm. Just, just,
Like
it's just see. I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me why the wiki was already doing this. Why, why
they
are they?
seem yeah, I
But
think it's just
this
like
is
they seem to be taking control of it, right?
that's even worse. But this, but this is the more interesting thing to me is there's previous patches in here. Patch 12, patch 11,
Mm.
14th, August 14th changes, patch 0 dot 9 with a meme in there. I don't like the I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I really don't know. Like, has this been an internal thing? for some time now, and they just decided, Nikita is like, okay, I'm gonna approve this, share it. I don't know. I have no idea. Is this like the wikis work? And the title's weird too. At the very top, you see "Escape from Tarkov" official and actual ammo table. It's kind of weird, but I guess it's the official BSG sanctioned "Escape from Tarkov" actual real, not fake ammo table.
_ final version 3.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll just say it one last time. Just put it in the game.
One interesting thing is that on all the other tabs, other than the patch 13 tab, there's actually a little note at the side. And it says, penetration damage, technical parameter for internal computation. The bigger, the better chance to penetrate armor and transform more damage to a body. Also to be mentioned, ammo has another technical parameter which is not included in this chart. Mass, ballistic characteristics, and so on. We'll add it later. For now, current parameters give a sufficient picture. Fragmentation, this means the bullet can split after body penetration and inflict way more damage. Armor damage ratio, how much of the damage from the projectile will go into the armor as a percent. If it's not penetrated, this amount of damage equals durability points to be deducted. And it's funny that they've got that written in here, right? Because this was not for public consumption. So it's kind of intriguing that they have that little note. The fact it says like penetration damage, technical parameter for internal computation, and that there's like more stuff that's not included about like mass and whatever. I don't know whether that hints to that they're going to make some even more changes later, like they're going to change the like different rounds, maybe have different ballistic properties or whatever. But I don't know. I'm not sure.
What mass and ballistic characteristics could have gameplay implications on.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I understand it right now, the ballistics model I think uses the same calculation for every bullet, and all that changes is the actual ballistic properties. So I think like the way when I was researching this originally when 12.12 came out and like speaking to the guys on Tarkov ballistics and all that stuff, there's like 7 different generalist models that are used commonly for different types of projectile, depending on whether it looks like, I'm not an expert, so I don't know the names, but whether it looks, like a 9mm like bullet, like, with rounded front, or whether it looks like, it's tapered at the back and tapered at the front, like I don't know, it's like some of the 7.62 ones are like.
Are you saying this is real life models?
Real life models for modeling actual ballistics. Now, the way that I understood it, I mean, maybe I'm wrong on this, but this is the way that I understood it when they implemented all this, was that they just used like the generic, like I think it's called like, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was like the first model or something. It was like one of the simpler models for just modeling it. And all they did for each different bullet was that they just gave it a different ballistic coefficient. Because that's good enough, right? Because that just means that some of them slow down at different rates. But you can have like, for example, you could have like 9mm on in theory, you could have 9mm on like a completely different model to like 54RP, like SNB. Because they're like the bullets are different shapes, right? So they don't follow the same algorithm even for calculating the projectile. Like you can't just fudge it with the ballistic factors. Like what they've done right now is that all the bullets are the same shape for as far as the calculations concerned. It's just like 9mm has like way higher ballistic drag than the other one, so it just drops off further. Not that it matters, but all of this is inconsequential. It really, like, it doesn't matter. But like the BSG is the type of company to want to add this stuff just because they like doing this kind of thing. So I don't know. Maybe that was an inference to that, but I'm not sure. I really don't know. Like I don't think there's like the weight of the bullet doesn't do anything in the game right now, right? So like literally just damage and pen properties. That's it. No, but you kind of assume that all of that is like it's a simplification and an abstraction. It's all rolled into the pen value and the damage value and the way that the drop-off curves function with the ballistic coefficient. That's like the way that you've got to think about it, because otherwise it just starts getting insane.
Yeah, I just wish there was like a simple, I didn't have to know 9 different models, and the models aren't even, what's the saying about models? Like they're just models. Like they're all effectively wrong, but they just kind of help us understand stuff, right? So
so it's like why use one rather than the other? Like just keep it simple. So hopefully they don't fiddle around with it. Like that's my hope, is they don't make it any more complicated just because they feel like it. Just don't, because why? But yeah, takeaway, put this in the game. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost be okay at like a bare minimum, like maybe you could have like, I don't know, would be a good compromise, but something I was thinking like something like uh bullet size large, or maybe like you can inspect the bullets and then have like a diagram of different bullet sizes, and you can maybe infer through laws of physics that bigger bullet means more damage. Just something that's like simple. Like maybe you don't want to have all those numbers in there because that still isn't exactly the most intuitive thing. Like, what the fuck? If you're new to the games, like, what the fuck does armor pin mean? What does armor damage mean? Aren't those the same thing?
Yeah, that's why you need like effective against, like things like
Oh,
that.
that would. Oh,
like,
yeah. You're talking Lost Light, man. They have
kind of,
like
yeah.
it's so. See, this is just like class 4. It has like all the classes, and then the bullets. Like 9mm would be like class 2. Like what? It was highlight 1 and 2, and then all the others follow the same thing. It's really simple. It's probably not even accurate. There's maybe like 50-50 rolls, but it gets you there for the most part, right?
Exactly, and that's what matters for most people.
I think so.
The technicalities only matter for strange people like me and you.
Yeah, perhaps. All right, so that was fun.
That was cool. So moving on. I mean, I hope they don't. Well, I mean, it'd be kind of interesting if they drop like loads more random stuff, but let's see. So moving on, what was next? We talked about the balancing changes, and oh yes, so there was a dog tag bug fix which came through. So what seems to have happened, and I think we talked about this last week, was that they changed the dog tags so that they didn't increase the prices, but everyone's kind of expecting them to do that at some point. I mean, I hope they do. So they changed the long-standing issue with farming dog tags because you used to be able to go into raid with buddies and kill them, get XP and take their tags, and then leave the raid, which is why the dog tags were never worth that much, because otherwise if they were worth, half a mil each or whatever, then like people would just farm each other and then have infinite money. So that was the main reason why they could never do that. And they finally put through the thing that people have been asking for ages, which is that if you're in the same team as someone else, you don't get any XP for killing them. Thank God, finally. I always found that weird. Like right back, I'd forgotten about that because I haven't played with people for so long. But like when I played right back in the day, I was just like, you get a TK, then you get some XP. It's just like this feels.
And your buddy has to pay the extra fee for you killing him. Like he has to heal. He doesn't have to heal his HP like he normally would. He has to heal from 0 HP because game does things.
And then, but now the dog tag is 1 ruble from that. But what happened? I think what happened is they managed to mess it up. When they implemented it.
Say it isn't so.
And I don't know what situations it was in particular, but it did seem you could infer based on what they wrote. Which, I mean, maybe this isn't right, because maybe this is a translation issue too. But like, well, they wrote specifically saying fixed incorrect display of players' dog tags who played in a group when selling to traders, which makes me think that like basically anybody who played in a group, it looked like it was 1. Like, so there were kind of 2 things at once. There was like some people were getting 1 ruble dog tags when they shouldn't be 1 ruble. Some people were getting 1 ruble dog tags when you sold them, they actually sold for the real value. So it was just a graphical glitch. Those 2 things seem to be separate. They have supposedly fixed this. And I think that it's resolved for the most part. But I actually have personally filed a bug with one of the, because they were talking about it separately, and I filed it with the community manager saying like, I don't know if this edge case has come through. So I was in factory as a scav, and then I looted the dog tag off of a player who was killed by Tagilla. So I left, and so I didn't kill them, but he was killed by a boss, but he wasn't in my group, but it was found in raid. And I left with that dog tag, and that dog tag was 1 ruble. And I was like, and this was after the fix. So I was like, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's something still going on here. And I was asked specifically, like, does it sell for 1 ruble, or is it just a visual bug?
Yeah.
And I recorded it and sold it, and it sold for 1 ruble. So I was like, interesting. So it wasn't just because that was the main thing, is that it was a visual bug, but there are cases where it was not, and that it was actually 1 ruble's worth for some reason. So they're still ironing that out a little bit.
Yeah.
It's amazing that it's so difficult to do.
But these things are never really just that straightforward, to be fair.
Yeah. It's probably like, they probably can't just go like, if if else, whatever, like just add it in.
Right,
It's probably
right.
like it's got to piggyback it off some other stupid system or whatever to actually like crowbar it in and get it done in a
Yeah.
sensible way in amongst everything else. Is
It's
probably
like,
the reason that
no,
it
we
didn't work.
use the team system to match people more easily, and now they're counted as a team member, and when you kill them, that's why it gets no 1 ruble. Now we got to rebuild that entire system from scratch.
Yeah,
Jimmy,
also
get on
like
it.
yeah, but we've used this thing at somewhere else. Like we've got the
Yeah.
quest thing to stop people from doing shooterboard in heaven, but then we've like hijacked on that to like do
Right,
spawn
right.
locations or something. So then it doesn't work for this because it's all piggybacked off each other. Like just stupid stuff like this. Like trying to retro it fit anything. Like this is Tarkov. This is one of Tarkov's. Well, I say one of Tarkov's big problems. This is one of tech's big problems in general, right? Like I have a lot of computer scientist friends. Like I'm not a tech guy myself personally, but tons of people who work in the tech space. And like other one friend in particular who said to me, is just like, he said, yeah, just like basically everywhere I go, the whole thing is just steaming piles of garbage on fire. Like basically every company, because just like the amount of tech debt just everywhere is insane. Like it has to be a very, very special place or somewhere that's very new, not to have insane amounts of tech debt, because just everybody does. And so trying to retrofit anything in is just like it's just insane. It's probably the reason why you get so many like cool like tech startups appear and then they like can disrupt and they're like really like agile and whatever, because they're not like dealing with all the rubbish that came before, and then they end up getting bogged down, and then somebody else new comes up with we're the new tech startup, because the old guys are like struggling with the stuff that they implemented 3 years ago that now is not fit for purpose. Anyway, it's kind of off topic, but so they're fixing that, and there do seem to be some bugs still with it, but yeah, it's the first step to them buffing the prices, which is something else that we wanted to do to help with PvP. Even though I did suggest it, I mean, it's not like I even sell the tags, to be honest. I don't. I probably should. I normally just keep them until later on, because I don't need the money really, and they do stupid stuff like give you like crazy dog tag barters in the events at the end of the wipe and stuff like this. So I just like normally keep them for those, just for fun. But yeah, we'll see. And then so next, I guess like unless there's anything else that you wanted to fit in between, I was going to talk about the weapon changes.
No, let's bring on the weapon changes. Speaking of PvP,
now you can PvP even better with this selection of garbage guns that they've tried to adjust a little bit. So they have changed the AUG. They have changed the FAL, the SA58, what it's called in game, but like almost everyone calls it the FAL, and the MCX. Now, this is interesting. It's interesting to just like also see their choices of weaponry too. It's like they buffed the G36 on Ergo in the past, but obviously haven't done anything with it now. Because I feel like the AUG and the G36 kind of get bundled into the same category because they're like the same caliber. They're competing sort of for the same category. They're both on the sort of higher fire rate end. Like you've got like the kings of the 101, the SCAR, the MDR with the low fire rates, so they're most controllable. So these guys are sort of like fighting for a weird spot. It's like, where does the G36 fit in the game? Where does the AUG fit in the game? It's all a bit weird. So I guess like starting with the AUG, like that's the one that I've spent the least time looking at because I just think it's uninteresting. They did actually change the the recoil from on the A1 from 62, and this is the base without any attachments, 62 to 52. So that's what's that? That's like a 17% improvement, and then the A3 version went from 60 to 50. So that's another 17%, which is honestly not like it's quite a big deal. Like I just put together literally just before the cast, I put together the Seika version of the AUG. That now gets to 36 recoil, which is pretty low. Like the AUG A3 actually had quite low recoil before. I guess we could like re-imply what that was, because if it was 36 and it was a 17% thing, it was 43 before, and now it gets to 36 meta. Whether that makes any difference really, I'm not sure. Like I had a look in the hideout. It still jumps quite a lot because it's a 715 RPM, so it's not like zero recoil, but it's a bit of a weird recoil pattern. Like it's still jumps side to side a bit.
What's the profile like? Is it side to side? I can't remember what they've settled on since.
What it does now, yeah. So now it's like it's just straight vertical. They got rid of all the weird horizontal stuff. But it goes, and I mean like it doesn't have an angle to it. It obviously has horizontal recoil. Yeah. It doesn't have an angle.
The angle is situated vertically.
Yes, rather than when it first came out, where it was just like super off to one side. Which I'm glad they tested it, and they were like, "Okay, this is garbage. Like, we'll get rid of it." But that's the way it should be, right? But anyway, so now it jumps, and then it seems to slowly pull back to the middle. It's actually really weird. It's like unlike the M4 that goes like and then goes to the center and flattens. I almost feel like it might be kind of usable. Like I haven't really looked at it that much, but like it is a bit rough on the horizontal recoil. I can't remember what the actual statistic is. I think I've got. Actually, I could probably just pull that up quickly now. I'll go and check what that is and how that compares to some of the other things. But it doesn't seem awful.
I
I will say.
mean, it might be decent if you fully kit it out, because that's kind of the weird thing about Tarkov is the lower you get that vertical recoil number, it's kind of like a global recoil reduction in actuality. I mean, it doesn't really affect the auto convergence aspect of it as far as like how long the kicks are, distance from the center to the endpoints of the recoil kick. If you can get that down, it helps a lot, right? So it might, but at that point, it's like, is the M4 just the better? I mean, is it worth spending the extra money on the M4? That's kind of just like the general, what it boils down. Is this enough to be a viable budget, whatever gun, whatever tier budget it is? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the big question, really, because it sits in that weird spot of like, okay, well, it's pretty cheap. You just need to put a suppressor on the thing and like maybe an optic or something. The horizontal recoil is 17, which is like everything's quite low these days. So it's not that bad, but because the RPM is slightly higher, I think the M4 is 15 now, I believe. So it's a little bit worse than the M4. Yeah, so the M4 is like 15 and its auto control is 1.5, whereas the AUG is 17 horizontal and 1.6 auto control. So it's like slightly better control vertically for slightly worse horizontal.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to remember now, because like I was trying to make the AUG work, and like it was like this weird thing where, like, as you said, it is better at auto control, but because the recoil is so wide, like wider, I should say, than the average, it's almost like counterproductive. Like, great, it goes to center faster and better, but it's all over the place. So like, it kind of doesn't work out that well. But I did like it because it had high. You could like single tap with it with good ergo, which was kind of nice. But it's just kind of a. I will say the ergo buff is probably, for me, the ergo and recoil buff might make it more viable, because the suppressor that can just go straight on to the AUG, it doesn't need any fancy, like, it's like the AUG, the suppressor for the AUG, essentially. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't think it's actually that good, but it's
not.
Yeah, it can just go straight on,
but it's cheap.
Yeah, because it only goes on the AUG and no one uses the AUG, so it's like it's really cheap because of that.
Now, if people start using the AUG, and because it might be as good, but if the price stays the same, then, because that's kind of the thing with the suppressors, and it's like, yeah, they reduce recoil, which is always good, but they also just suppress your gun, which is like a huge thing. So just having the suppressor on it was nice, but the ergo tank was pretty noticeable. So maybe now that you got a few more points, it's not that bad. I don't know. Something to check out when the wipe happens.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's good now. I think, again, some of these things come like too late. Like, there's interesting stuff that I'm going to be looking out for next wipe. Things like, BCP FMJ for 7.62 NATO, which I actually think is going to be a really good bullet next wipe, but it was too late by the time they made the changes. Like, people are going to overlook this thing, for sure, and they're going to overlook the RFB again because M80's on Peacekeeper 4 and everyone's just going to whine and cry and not use that gun and use other things. Overlooking the fact that BCP FMJ has the same pen as PS, but it has way more damage.
Yeah.
It's going to be really good. Like, if people think that PS is good, then BCP FMJ is going to absolutely slay people early wipe, I think, and with something cheap like the RFB. But yeah, so the AUG is another one that's interesting because it's like, it's one of those things, right? So it's like, yeah, it's not better than a Meta M4. Fine. But like, the gun costs 60k and you put a suppressor on it. Like, I think
it's like 20k for the suppressor.
Something like that. Like, if you put on,
it's really cheap.
So there is, you can just put on the suppressor, right? There's one called, there's actually two for it. There's one called the AUG ASC Ultra S series. That's the one that just goes on the front without any brakes. That takes you to 48 ergo and 42 recoil, which is like so it's okay. I mean,
it's
the recoil's
okay.
like still pretty low, right? Given the meta's 36, it's not going to matter that much. But the ergo's kind of low. If we then take any of the muzzles, so the best muzzle, which is where is it? Horizontal. No, that one. It's either it's this one, the A3MB, and then we put on the T4 org, which is the other suppressor. That gets you to 50 ergo and 38
That's
recoil.
much
That's a lot better. That's the one with the duplicate thing. If you then go for like the meta one instead, which is the Ratworks, which is the one that allows you to use anything you like, and you go, to be honest, you probably don't even go Seika with that. That gets you 47 and 36. If instead you go to the G-Lock, I think is meta now. But the Seika suppressor shouldn't really be used by most people. People love the Seika because it's like the best vertical recoil.
right.
But the G-Lock and the M4 SDK, which is the suppressor that goes onto it, that's actually, I think, the best overall one, because rather than being, so I think the Seika is like, because it's 14 and 9, so it's like 23%, but the G-Lock is 14 and 8.5, so it's 23.5% vertical recoil. But the ergo is way better than the Seika. So if you use the G-Lock, you're now 51 ergonomics and 36 vertical recoil. So like the recoil is so similar between the Seika and this, you can't even see it in the, like it's a rounding error.
Yeah.
Like it's within the rounding, it doesn't even come up on the vertical recoil stat. It's so similar. And you can get 51 ergonomics with this thing, which is, I don't know whether that's going to be okay. Like it's still like 4.6 kilos. Like it's not super light or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think it could be a contender because like this thing is a hell of a lot cheaper than the Meta M4. Like by the time that you bought, you just only have to buy a couple of parts for the Meta M4, and like even if you buy something like because people are sort of struggling these days to like make M4s worthwhile, and you seem to either start with like the SOT mod, just because it's such good value, or you start with like the LVOA one from Mechanic.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the two because you get the Ultor upper and stuff, right?
Right.
But that thing costs like that's like what 4 GP coins. You're talking about 120k
Yeah.
for the base gun. You've done nothing, and it's 120k to start with. Whereas like with the org, it's like it costs 120k and you've got the meta one.
Yeah.
And it's 715 vertical recoil. The recoil, sorry, RPM, and so the recoil profile isn't as harsh as the M4 because the M4 still will pull up and pull back down even when it's like pretty modded out. But it's not slow rate of fire as something like the 101. So you could put like I think this is going to be like a 5.6A1 cannon. I'm going to try it next wipe. I am, and the horizontal recoil is only slightly worse than the other guns. Almost everything now is 15 horizontal. This is 17. So one of the only ones that is 17. But I mean, to be fair, the Mark 47 is 17 as well. But because, as you said, because the vertical recoil is so low, it kind of like it brings everything down, right? Even the horizontal. So maybe, and now it's got this extra 4 ergonomics as well that I didn't mention that you pointed out. As a base, it's like a little bit higher. Like
I think it'll be a more interesting early wipe gun for sure. Because I kind of felt like the G36 was just better in my opinion, but and then the reason why is because the G36 profile is way more vertical than the AUGs. It has, less auto compensation, but my skill ceiling, get good, bro, just pull down, is kind of the solution to that problem. And this is the thing, and I know Clean's talked about this, and I really hope BSG do this at some point, but I can't buy recoil profile or like actual horizontal recoil reduction. And if I could buy that, that would open up a lot more possibilities for interesting builds. Like imagine you could trade ergo and vertical recoil for horizontal reduction on the AUG. That could make it really enticing. Or some, you could have different play styles. Let's say you don't like let's say you're fine with horizontal, but you want more auto compensation, you could build it for that, or you could go the other way with it. So
yeah, you just need to put these stats on the attachments in a sensible way, like you have like horizontal recoil only being able to be changed by like a smaller number, but like you have to make sacrifices elsewhere to get it under control. And like as you say, you can maybe change the auto comp number or something. Like there's so many factors, and you could make the attachment system like way more dynamic by having vertical recoil, well, like I guess like regular recoil as it is now, because without having to change anything, you'd have like regular recoil, ergonomics, dispersion, and convergence, and you have all those 4 statistics as factors on the attachments with a mix and match with each one, and then people will be able to do it. Then it would be a bit like so something like PUBG or whatever, even like Modern Warfare has got a much more simplistic modding system, but in some sense the attachment mechanics are more complicated because it's not that clear cut what you need to use. You know, we've ended up in this kind of just
What do you mean
search for the
it's-
optimum. Well, like before, it was like in PUBG, it was kind of like, well, some attachments, as you say, affect like horizontal recoil, some
Okay.
affect like sway. It's like Modern Warfare is like this, right? It's like
Right, right.
aiming sway versus like ADS speed versus there's like loads of different factors, so you have to choose between. Like, okay, trying to figure out which one's better. Whereas now, because we've got like a 2-parameter system, you just like
I see.
max
I think
one
I
and
see
then
what you're
optimize for
saying.
the other, and then that's it, right? It's actually like we've ended up. It looks very common. We talked about this before, but Tarkov looks very complicated at its outset. But once you understand like the mechanics of like how the attachment system functions, it's actually quite a simplistic optimization algorithm, really, right? It's the one I always go, just like max recoil, and then where can I gain the most ergonomics for the most limited recoil sacrifice. And then you see everybody running the same weapon over and over again. Like you're hard pressed to find anybody over level 40 now that doesn't either run the canted RK1 or the SE5 grip.
Yeah.
It's on every gun. The MOE with the butt pad, with the ARE tube, it's on every gun.
Yeah.
With the growl grip on basically every gun.
I don't know about 5.56 suppressors, but I know when I was playing the Saker one was on every 5.56.
The dudes HK4 and 6 that I killed with the thing, RK1, MOE on the back, Saker suppressor on the front.
Yeah. Long barrel as well. Yeah.
He actually went for like a shorter one. Interestingly,
really?
He had a short. He didn't have a full meta one. It was slightly shorter CQB one, which I was like, oh, fair play. You've broken away from the meta by using 4 out of 5 meta parts.
But I wonder if that's the new meta because of they've changed the HKs. I think like the ergo is kind of tough, if I recall. There's a bit of an ergo issue.
Maybe I don't know. But anyway,
the point stands, and I liked Modern Warfare's 2's approach to it because it was like you have 5 choices, and you can't exceed that. You know what I mean? Like, so it made it really hard. Like finding a build that you like. Let's say I wanted to do a hipfire build. It's like great, but like there's only 5 choices that you can have at one time, but there's like 7 or 8 different slots that you can do different attachments. So it's like, okay, which ones is going to be the best for here? It's like, oh, I really want this, but it has this con, but like I could do this. Like it was a puzzle they had to like complete and figure out to make a gun, not a meta, not like the best gun. I mean, of course there's metas, but it was fun. I liked it. And I hope that Tarkov has something similar where you have that sort of flexibility, and there's always going to be metas, but I do feel like we have a very stale meta,
I think we do in terms of attachments. I think we do in terms of attachments. I actually think that this wipe, I don't think people necessarily give enough credit for like the horizontal. I mean, to be fair, we did at the time. The community said it was brilliant, but the horizontal and vertical recoil changes that they made to the weapons, especially the horizontal ones, I actually think have really opened out the weapon use quite dramatically. Like I see people use all sorts of things. Like I know that the mutant is probably the best, but it's really expensive. But I see people using all kinds of different guns, right? It's like one session through, I was just like, it's probably less so in the SMGs, but like I had like an XMC from one guy, there's another guy using the M1A, there's a dude using the M4, the next one's an HK, like the next guy that I killed, he's got like an RSAS or something. Like there's lots of people using lots of different weapons. SMGs are a bit limited, to be fair. Like most people use the MP7, but this is like an ammo mix thing rather than anything else.
There's a bit of an ammo.
It's not a gun problem. It's like it's an ammo thing. It's because FMJ is just too freely available, right? Like it shouldn't. It's got the highest pen of all of the SMG ammos, and you don't have to craft it, so everyone uses that weapon, of course. But look, it'd be really cool if you could have a combination of the 2 systems, right? It's like the PUBG one was really straightforward. The Modern Warfare one, you can only choose so many things, but like there's only so many things you can do within that system, so it's kind of straightforward eventually once you figured it out. Tarkov's one's kind of straightforward, but if you could like mix them together and have like a 4 or 5 factor problem with Tarkov's like variety of modding, it would make it like crazy insane, and people would use like a huge variety of different things. Like some people would value, like we said before, just pull down skill issue, right? Like the meta stuff would be reducing horizontal recoil basically at all costs, even with ergo. Like I've watched like Glorious play Underground Reserve with like a gun with like 5 ergonomics, and he absolutely kills people. I don't know how he does it, because like I can't play with the guns with that low ADS speed. Like I need a bit of more ADS speed.
it's the truth.
But he
But,
was
like,
ADSing with these guns.
yeah, you can. You just have you
You just have to
can't.
be a god gamer, right? But this is the thing: like
Yeah,
most people won't do that. So the meta stuff will
I
be
get you.
meta
I
for
get you.
people who are the highest skill. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, at the highest play level, there's a different
Yeah.
meta than
Yes, and I
yeah,
think that's kind of okay as well. It's like, all
yeah,
right,
for
this
sure.
is like technically the best if you're like top skill, but if you want to reduce your vertical as well a bit because like you struggle or you need a bit more ergo, then like this is
Yeah,
maybe a more balanced build. Like it gives so many more like options to people, and I think you'd see people using a dramatic increase in the amount of different attachments and like everything that wasn't just like the two best ones. Because like between the SE5 and the RK1 canted, it's actually kind of arguable, I think, at this point.
mhm.
Because the RK1 is like 3% recoil and some ergo, and then the SE5 is like 2% recoil, but 6 more ergo. So on most guns, the guns that I was looking at recently, it was like it changed your recoil by 2 points and your ergo by 6 points, like in different directions. So it's like, which do I want? Like, do I want 2 recoil? Do I want 6 ergo? Like, you actually have to choose between those two. It's really the only difficult choice you have to make. Do I want to take this one or this one? And there's a bit of a price thing there too, so you can take something cheaper if you want. But
Yeah, this is
yeah,
this
just
is this
yeah.
is my pitch to BSG. I'm not a gun guy, but I like customization as something that's unique to me, and I really want to make cool looking guns. You know, like
Mm.
be like, yeah, I made this, and this is catered to me. You know, like this MCX, it's ultra compact. You know, it benefits me in X. I mean, now it does, but of course, we're making the argument that the meta is clearly heavily weighted in one way. And I want to add too, I think this is why they should switch to multiplicative, because to be fair, what we're suggesting, it's not easy because there's so many, unlike Modern Warfare, you have all the slots you can modify, and
Mm-hmm.
it'd almost be it'd be very likely that your first go there would be some horrible game breaking OP combinations. I think if they did switch to multiplicative, you don't have to worry about that as much, but there's obviously pros and cons to that
Yeah.
system.
And even on top of that, actually, I was just thinking, like, stuff I've been thinking about recently about, like, finding raid and attachments and da-da-da. Like, you could make ones that do kind of everything. The ones that
Oh
are finding
yeah,
raid
that's
only, not on the
interesting.
flea, you know what I mean? Like only on bosses. Maybe they're not, like, crazy powerful, but it's, like, they're, like, clearly better, but they are
Yeah,
only in raid. You have to go and get them yourself. Like, they're not on the flea market.
yeah.
Something like that. Like, the items that are, like, really valuable. So if you find somebody one of these foregrips, you're just like, I never see this thing. Like, this thing is nuts. Like, this is by far the
Yeah,
best.
they could even one approach you could just like take, for the most stock, for example, let's say they did the system and it has, changes horizontal, vertical, but it reduces ergo, whatever. And then you got the CTR stock that does the exact same thing, but it has no cons. It's just
Mm,
better. Like it's just a direct upgrade. But it's found in
yeah.
raid only, so it'd be really interesting. Or they could, do some other wild thing. Just tons of possibilities. That's the fun part about
Exactly.
it.
Yeah, it'd be cool. So yeah, so the org could be interesting next fight. I mean, yeah, I kind of forgot about the G36, but about how good the G36 is early. Like it is a good gun, honestly. So it's maybe a potential. I mean, I'll probably still end up just using the 650 guns because they're just so good. Like the MDR is just so good. But yeah, maybe the org is slightly better. It's got better vertical recoil and fires faster. So I'm liking the recoil profile more than anything else, just because it
Yeah.
jumps and then floats down. It's quite
Yeah.
gentle. So once you've pulled down the first bit, you only have to just like slowly adjust. It's not like, because you have to adjust twice with a lot of the others. So let's move on to the other two. So we got the SA58 or the FAL, which went from 277 base to 250. Again, that's with no attachments at all. So it's obviously a lot lower than that once you've added the stock and da da da. And the MCX, and the Ergo went from 34 to 39. The MCX went from 137 to 127. Logical put a typo in his tweet. It looked like they nerfed the MCX in his tweet, and everyone was like, "Oh, they're done."
How
And
could you do
he
this?
was like, "No, it's 127. Sorry." He said it underneath his tweet. So they changed it by 5, which is pretty small. From 132 to 127 is like, it's like a 4% improvement, which when you get it down, like the M6 can be modded somewhat. When you get it down to the lower levels, like it's only a 4% improvement in recoil. It's like not a lot. and that was all they did to it. So, I mean, I'm actually putting something together. I'm gonna like make something official on this just because I kind of feel like it. I sort of forgot about the org. I don't know whether I should add it in. I'm not sure. I'm gonna leave it actually. I'm gonna leave it. But basically, the long and the short of it is, I can't make the essay work in a sensible way. It's still got the worst of all worlds. The ergonomics just isn't enough. You can't really use it on full auto. If you want to use that, use the Scar. Or
I mean,
the
what about
MC.
with the change now, though?
It just doesn't work.
Even now?
It just doesn't. I just can't get it. I just
Really?
can't get it to work. Like even if you. So the problem with the FAL
Is its hidden stats? Let me guess.
partly, which is what I'm looking up right now. Right. So it's got a horizontal recoil of 21, which is one of the absolute worst in the whole
really
game.
bad compared to
And the fact that it has high recoil, right, for a weapon like that,
right?
But it's the combination of the two. Like you said, right, the lower the recoil, it tightens everything down.
Right.
Well, it's got high recoil and it has a really bad horizontal stat, so it's like
Yeah.
double worse. And then the auto control stat is 1.2, which again is like
Really
one of
bad.
the worst in the game.
Yeah.
Compounded on the fact that it's 700 RPM in M16 NATO, right? So fast firing with low convergence is a recipe for disaster with a high horizontal spread. Even if you make this thing as low as it physically can go, which I think is 52, it jumps like an absolute beast. ADS'd on full auto. It's just it's like an M4 that's not been modded properly.
Yeah.
Not stock. It's like not like a stock M4. It's better than that, but it's like an M4 probably like 70 recoil or 60 recoil. It's like not really usable unless you're not ADSing, you've got the laser on, you've got a drum in, it's zero ergo, and you just run around factory blasting people. But like it's so specific, and there's other guns that do that well.
Yeah.
Like if you want the ability to use full auto, it's just like when it's on semi, it's just a really bad M1A. When it's on full auto, like yeah, with the drum sometimes it can work, but it's just like a bad Scar. You know, I mean, you got the extra ammo, but then like having that, you're like, oh, but I've got the ability to do semi or full auto, and it's just like, it just sucks at both though. So like, no, just like if you want to do semi auto, just use the M1A. If you wanted to go full auto, use the Scar and then switch it or the MDR and like switch it to full auto when you need it. You know, it's like, unless you're really dead set on the 50 round drum, and that's the thing that's the make or break, just use the RD. Like it doesn't have a place. This is the thing. Like, yeah, you can't spit out 7.62 NATO out of a 50 round drum any other way than using this weapon. But I just don't think it justifies it. Like that one feature, which sounds amazing on paper, never comes to fruition when you actually try to fire the gun in that way, unless you're playing factory. Like it's okay in some places. Like if you can teleport yourself into dorms, it's fine there. Resort is probably okay mostly, but down the corridors, it's going to be a problem. Labs, it's too long. The distance is just too far in most places. Interchange is way too far. Like customs, if you need to go outside, it's too far. Like factory's fine, but it's just so limited. It's just I tried, dude. I tried my best. Like there's not enough to work with from the meta recoil. It's already bad before you even start optimizing.
Yeah.
And then you try to add ergo to it. Like they've added 5 ergo, but like this thing is already at like 2.
Right.
So you go like, oh, I'm going to improve, do all my optimizations and add 20. It's just like, great. It's still like 22. It still lifts like an absolute dog. This thing weighs like 7 kilograms.
I mean, it's effectively taking the place of the Val. You know, the Val used to be VSS used to be like the meta guns, and then they gave it the old Nerf bat, and they were just garbage for longest times. And now the SA-58, it used to be the meta gun because it was really good at one point, and then they nerfed it with the good old Nerf bat, and now it's basically a meme gun, more or less.
It just took the big old RPM slap like all the others did. Just because it's 700 RPM. If it fired at 600, it would probably be okay.
Just single tap, bro. Lol.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like don't use it. You know, use the M1A. Like there's no point.
Just get a script, and get a script that clicks your mouse at 600 RPM. There you go.
Yeah, dig. Oh my god, yeah. So the MCX didn't change so much. I had a go. I have one in my stash. I used it. a little bit, not in raid, but used in the firing range. It still feels quite good. I never thought the MCX was particularly bad. People always like come to me, and every time I talk about the MCX, and they're just like, "No, bro, the MCX is like, oh, it's really terrible. Oh, the horizontal's so rough on it." I'm just like, dude. Like people just have it in their head that the M6 is terrible at horizontal. It's 15. The M4 is 15. The 416 is 15. The 556MDR is 15. The SAG AK is 15. The MP9N is 15. Like they're all 15. It's 50. It's the same as all the others. Like it does get quite it doesn't get as low as the M4, which is the problem.
Right.
Again, it's the same issue, right? It doesn't get as low as the M4 on recoil, but it has the same fire rate.
Yeah.
And so the horizontal feels worse because all the recoil is worse. Not just the horizontal, but it's like all of it's worse. So like they're kind of right. But people are right for the wrong reasons when they say that, I think. The stats are the same, but you can't get it that low. You can now get it to, I think it is 30, maybe it's also 36. Let me just go to my document because I did document this. The best one that you can physically do is this one. Yeah, 36. So 36 recoil is the best that you can get. And it's okay. Like it's all right. But this is the thing. Like I'm a bit of a MCX sort of champion, I guess. Even though I don't really use it. Like I just want the MCX to be good. But my point with it now is that the gun was okay before. It's now slightly better. It's like still okay now. But the big problem with it is the ammo. When you're using 5.56, you can craft M995 and you can buy 5.5A1. You can use them together and you have a sensible ammo loadout. MCX doesn't have this. You just have 300 blackout, which is good. But you have to craft that. And then the next best ammo is M62. And it's like 5.6A1. And it's too much of a drop to have as your secondary like backup. It's all right. And then it fires too quickly as well. Like you go, oh, but you're just making BP instead or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's normally you're not firing BP at 800 RPM. And it does more damage, right? Like BP will kill class 5. It has a chance. It has a chance to two-shot. It has a chance to two-shot people wearing class 5.
Right.
So the M6 like fires more bullets. It has to kill. It has to. You have to hit them with more rounds to kill them. It's actually that's like a really like weird like fringe breakpoint. It's like BP with 58 damage can two-shot a class 5, but the MCX can't because it's like 54 damage or something. Like it's so close to the edge, but it doesn't quite do it. But the M6 thing is, the M6, it should be good, but I just think the ammo mix makes it not really like viable, even though the gun itself is actually okay. That's my take.
Here's the thing with, in my opinion, the FAL and the MCX. There's probably some other guns. I guess maybe the G36, but essentially the problem is, well, one of the problems is that the short builds just don't work. Like, who cares about ergo, right? Like I can't ever. It doesn't make any sense. Why do I want more ergo so I can snipe better? But now my barrel is shorter, so my muzzle drops more, and my accuracy is less. Like it just doesn't make any sense. So that argument doesn't work. If there was some good incentive to make short builds, then yeah, I think these guns could be like a short SA58. Saying it out loud sounds ridiculous, but if it actually could be viable, that could be a different route, and it might make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the numbers here, right? So because I literally was looking at this, which is quite handy actually for this discussion. So the SA58, the lowest you can get is 52. You make some optimized builds with a 30 rounder, canted RK1. That's 60 recoil, 19 ergo. SE5, 62 recoil, 25 ergo. If you then go for the medium barrel, it's 67 recoil with 33 ergo. And with the SE5, it's 70 recoil and 39 ergo. So basically, each step is like, moving to the medium barrel, you lose 7 recoil, something like that. And you gain like a decent amount of ergonomics. It's like 22 or something.
Right.
But, oh wait, sorry, not that much. That's like 14, sorry. But it's not enough. It's like, would you go from 25 ergo and 62 recoil with the SE5 long barrel to 33 ergo and 67 recoil? It's like, do you want to lose 5 more recoil for gaining 8 ergonomics? Like on this gun, not really.
Right, because the base ergo is already low. essentially.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. It's
this,
like the best one here. It's like
that's
39 ergo and 70 recoil for the medium one using the SE5.
right.
It's like, well, shall I just like 39 ergo is not even that great, and that's using the 30 rounder. Should I just take the 10 recoil advantage and go for 19 ergo instead? Like it's 20 ergo less, but like we've said this before, like medium and short barrels should give you like even more ergonomics now.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think that's because the value of 1 point of ergo is not equivalent to the value of 1 point of recoil. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like one is linear or like a flat number, and the other one's a percentage.
it's a bit weird, yeah.
So it's not really a fair trade. There are situations where maybe it does work. So I guess that could be one approach. But even then, would that make any sense? Because
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess you could argue you could ADS faster. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
this is the thing.
something.
Like, there needs to be other stuff, right? Or you talked about other things,
Right.
like stuff that you've talked about, things that Numbers of Tarkov talked about like hipfire spread,
Mhm.
things that I've talked about with like ergonomics affecting the like walk speed whilst ADS. Like, ergo needs another factor. It needs
Yeah.
something else to become relevant. Otherwise, and it needs a rebalance in like the amount that you get for taking recoil disadvantages. Otherwise, people are just not going to take those builds. They just won't. It doesn't make sense.
I need to share in Discord one day. Share my screen with you. Watch me play in the Tarkov
Mm.
SP realism mod with the gun builds, and just soak it all in. Okay, that's
It'd be great. I'm sure it's great.
that's why I want you to see it, because there's some really, honestly, man, they could just copy paste it. I'm sure
I know.
the guy wouldn't mind, but it would.
This is the thing, right? I get asked all the time. Like, people are actually asking me like more and more, like, what do you think about Tarkov SP?
Mhm.
And I always just say the same thing. I'm just like, I'm not going to play it because like I like playing against real people, but I don't understand why the approach is so hardline against it. Right? There's like,
I'm sure they have a
I sort of
reason.
get, I sort of get it, but like, it's also going to happen whether you like it or not. Right? You can't stop this. You may as well say, rather than just like fighting this thing that's inevitable, why don't we try to glean as much benefit as we can out of this inevitability? I just feel that would be a lot more of a sensible thing, because you've basically got people like beta testing stuff you can't do,
What do you mean?
like the realism recall, whatever. Like, they're never going to do this, or they don't want to spend the dev hours doing it, whatever.
Right.
Somebody's gone and done it for free,
Somebody's
and
done
people are testing it.
something. Right.
Yeah, people have done anything. Like, it's a way of actually implementing stuff into like a live game in their game.
Yeah.
And test these systems to see whether they make sense and whether people like them or not.
There's some
Like,
value
you can
there.
go and look. Like,
right.
yeah, there's some value there, and you
Right.
didn't have to do any of the work. You can just go and see the
Right.
output. People are doing this
It's
stuff for
free
free.
labor.
It's free labor, and like the scope
Yeah.
reworks and stuff. Like,
I agree.
people do this stuff for free. I don't understand. I just feel like they're missing a trick. Like, I understand that they don't like it for whatever reason, but they've not liked data mining and stuff for a long time, and they've just published a spreadsheet of ammo. So maybe they can change their mind. I just think it's just like, people are going to do this, right? You can't stop them.
Yeah, I would like to know the reasons. I've heard some stuff, but the question for me is like, is it a good enough reason to have that stance? That would be my question for them. Like, what is your reason? And then I would weigh it. Is that a good enough reason?
Yeah,
But
exactly. No, it'd be interesting to see it though, to see what they've done, because I think a lot of these things that we talk about, like in that, right, it's just like the positioning, balance of the weapon, and like different stats and all this stuff. Like,
I'll show you one day. I'll try to make a point of it, because I think you would.
I'm sure I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Okay, moving. We got to get the show on the road. So that's all the buffs. Can we talk about the ray tracing stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so there was a video circulating around on Twitter from Tarkin, I believe his name is. I don't know how it got circulated. Maybe someone just posted. But he posts, this guy Tarkin posts YouTube videos on this channel, and they're actually really entertaining. And there's it's like, I don't know what exactly everything is on there, because like one of the ones I watched, it was titled something like your average customs raid, and he's in like customs in one of the blue shacks, right? And he leaves, it's the one with the filing cabinets, no medical case.
Hmm.
And he leaves that and he goes out left to the gate where there's like some vehicles and there's a blue car there. And I noticed there's a like something looked odd, and I saw that the shadow for the truck was there, but there was no truck. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden he like his camera locks into the car and he starts driving the car around Big Red and Customs, and there's like a racetrack and it's like laps and there's a little racetrack mini map and he's like drifting. The car physics are all over the place, dude. But I was like, dude, what? Like, what is going on? There's tons of stuff like that. It's just like it's a mix of like I think a little bit of modding, a little bit of Photoshop, a little bit of modeling. Like he has one where it was like when you accidentally click use, and he was on woods. He went in the cabin, picked up Tashanka, and he ate it. And he opens up his inventory and he hovers over and he goes right click use, and you notice that it's on the bleach next to like the drink. And then the PMC pulls out the bleach, unscrews it, and drinks it, and then dies. I was like, that's really good. But I noticed, I was like, as soon as he left the UI and his gun went away, the window, there's like trees in the background. They like changed frame instantly. It's like, okay, so he must have dropped his gun so nothing was there. And then he went into like Blender or maybe Unity, but I'm assuming Blender, and like modeled everything and rigged everything up and did the animations. And you can put like transparent background. It's just layered over in video editing, but it looks very convincing. And I was like, dude, that's really he has tons of stuff like that. It's like I don't know what's real and what's not. You know, like there's literally one where there's a million airdrop planes flying over, and then he pans over to the left, and there's a plane crashing on the Interchange highway, and like barrels and containers and walls are flying everywhere. I'm just like, what is that? What is that? Is that modded? Is that like photoshopped? After Effects? Like I don't know. It looks so convincing. I went like frame by frame. Like this consumed a good like 2 hours of my day. So anyways, he has one about ray tracing, and it's on Interchange, and it looks amazing. And it looks like what you would expect, like the lights coming in from the skylights, or the what a skyline. What would you call that?
Yeah,
The
like
glass
skylight,
roof.
like a roof light or something. Yeah,
Right.
skylight.
It's like hits the ground and like reflects and refracts and bounces off, and everything is like really illuminating those areas, and it just looks so good. Now I will say that the textures of the walls and stuff look a little bland and plain, so everything looks kind of like not very. I mean, maybe that's what you would expect from a store in a mall. Like the walls are very well kept. I don't know. It does look a little off, but I was like really trying to figure out what the heck is this again. Is this like, did he like rebuild the game and like perfect position everything and added ray tracing? Like this is just like some AI bullshit going on. Like I have no idea what's going on. And I was paying attention to the gun and like the shadows on the gun when he's moving. He's got a P90, so there's like some weird housing for the sights, and there's gaps in between. You can see the shadows moving in between those gaps. So I'm like, okay, well this is like really convincing, and he toggles it on and off throughout the video. At one point, it like fades. It's like crossfades the standard Tarkov and then the ray trace Tarkov. Because I saw him toggling, and I was like, okay, surely this is a mod. It's because there's like, you can like toggle certain things with mods. But then the fading, I was like, okay, now I don't even know what that is anymore. Like, how did he do that? Is it just a video that's like overlaid and it just cross? I don't know. So I went digging, and I looked at the Tarkov SP stuff, and there's like a graphics. I don't know if it's technically a graphics overhaul, but it's a graphics mod. And there's no ray tracing stuff there, but there's some new features they added, so I played around with it a little bit. I couldn't get anything nowhere near close. Because the other thing I noticed too is, if you go watch the video, if you look at the skylights again, there's some like sheets of metal around the skylights, like kind of like blocking them off. And when he cuts the ray tracing on, they are reflective, like they're shiny, like as you expect light to, like they're probably a little overly shiny, but that's really interesting because that means that there's something informing the light that what this material is. Do you know what I mean? So like, how is he doing that? You know, if it's like if it's like some type of like, because normally I think that's like coded into ray tracing, right? You have certain surfaces that's like, okay, this is this material, and this is, you know, how it would reflect if it's wood, if it's glass, you know, whatever. Yeah. So I don't think that's like, I guess maybe he hijacked an existing system. I don't know. Point is, I don't think it was the mod. So then I started looking around more, and I found this stuff called let's see if I can get it right. SSRTGI, which stands for Screen Space Ray Traced Global Illumination. So screen space is what's on your screen. Okay. Ray trace, we know, is lights, realistic lighting bouncing off shit, essentially. Source bouncing, whatever. So normally in ray tracing, everything is done in real time, and it has the entire world of the game is being calculated. Screen space is just what's on the screen. So like, if there's a light source behind me, it's not able to use that into its calculation because it's not being actually rendered on the screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Does that make it look weird? I don't know.
Yes. It's when you pan around, it's not the most convincing. Like, it's just less accurate overall.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and the global illumination, I think it's just like the overall lighting of, because you have like pre-baked lighting and then which is like textures. But anyways, I don't really know. Someone could probably correct me. Point is, this stuff's really cool. It's uses reshade because reshade essentially hijacks the rendering. I shouldn't say hijacks, but it acts as a middleman between the game and the rendering API. So you have like Vulkan, DirectX 9, DirectX 10, 11, 12. All those are like rendering APIs, you know, that Windows uses to your graphics card, Windows game. That's how that's like the path, right? But then Reshade sits in between and kind of like mask as the API. So like Windows thinks that's the API, but it's really just modifying in between.
Come through.
Right. And it can like send and receive stuff. It's pretty interesting. So that's how you can basically add all these like crazy stuff with Reshake, is you essentially hijack a lot of these things. So you can, if you get access to the depth buffer, which is essentially a depth map where it's kind of like black and white, but like the more black stuff, I think the black stuff is more closer. It doesn't really matter, but the white stuff is further away. And then if you get access to that, then you can use that to use the screen space ray tracing. So I tried it in Tarkov SP, and it did not look anything like what he was doing. I probably need to tweak it a lot more. I mean, I like, before we got on call, I was like messing around with it, but I am super curious to see if I get anywhere near, but I don't think so. And I would, it's killing me that I don't know how he did this, because it's his level of skill in his other videos are like insane. And it's just like something mystical and magical about it. You know, it's like, I don't, like he might be the type of person that doesn't, like, a magician never reveals his secrets. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like that's a bit of it, but it's just like so convincing. It's unreal, honestly.
You don't even know how he's put it together.
Exactly. And that's what's it's like driving me crazy.
I mean, I don't really know much about this stuff, right? But like in my assumption when I saw that video was that he had done like the guys do, like Junker and those guys, that he'd basically like ripped the map and put that into Blender or whatever. And so like he had like the full game in Blender somehow. Because you wouldn't need to model everything. Like you've just got like the character model and stuff, and like your camera is just like fixed to that and da da da. And so you've got it like, I mean, maybe he just did it very carefully with the video edit, so that it's not actually like a switch toggle or whatever. It's like he's walking with one thing, but he's just recorded a load of footage of himself in offline mode, and he's just like managed to seamlessly, he's walked in exactly the right place, and like it's just and that's why it blends on one of them, because it was like wasn't quite right, and he's just like, oh, I can't be bothered. I'll just blend it from one to the next rather than doing the switch over, because you can do the switch, like you can make it look convincing, I think, if you spend enough time doing it. Because that's the way that I thought would be like the most obvious, because it's like then you just got right. All I have to do is fiddle around with camera stuff, which won't take that long really in the grand scheme of things, and I can pull the whole map into Blender, and I can then do my ray tracing model in here. It's not Tarkov, but it's like it's something. It's just Blender. So you can do what you want, and then you can do your ray tracing in there, and yada yada yada. Like that was my take on it, but like that's completely uneducated. I know nothing about this, but that was my. I was like, oh, this is probably how it's done. If you're going to ask me, this is probably the way that I would think it gets completed. But who knows, really?
Well, see, even what you're saying is, I don't think it's impossible, because this is kind of the thing. Is like we don't know how much time. Like, let's say someone did that approach, it probably is going to take a lot more time, arguably, than I'd imagine it'd take a lot of time to get to look that convincing. You know what I mean? So like, if he sunk 1,000 hours into it, for example, because he wanted to get it perfect, it's like, okay, yeah, that could work, but I don't know if there was like a 10-hour thing he did, because he's that, his technical skills are just that high. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, someone in chat was saying like if you've managed to pull all the map, and I wasn't saying necessarily that they pulled the graphics models, but just like I guess like, yeah, you mean the actual like physical things. I was thinking, because I don't know how easy it would be to replicate the lighting. Like maybe you can just pull the whole thing into Blender, like the lighting and everything, and then you can just toggle it in. Like it's not even like none of it's Tarkov really. It's all Blender.
That's the question.
They've just remodeled the full game in Blender. Well, not the full game, right? None of the systems are there, because all you need is a walk animation, a PMC body from first person perspective. Like there's no AI or anything on screen, right? It's just the map. You just need the map, the person, the camera, and to walk, and then have a toggle, right? And then none of it's Tarkov. Then one of it's ray trace, one of it's just like the base values. If you can just pull the lighting in, that would also be not too bad. But
that's the thing, is you could, because I guess one hand, you're like you could do the offline thing in real Tarkov, and then go in Blender, and then you don't even need Tarkov lighting. You because you're doing your own lighting, basically. So then it would just be a matter of getting, as you're saying, everything to
footage lined up,
which might be possible. I mean, it probably is possible. This is it just kills me that I can't. I thought it was gonna be like, it's just gonna be, this is gonna be like, it's just a mod, like, but now it's just like, fuck, did this guy like spend an eternity recoding, his own like scuffed Tarkov? It's only like this section of Interchange. He like rebuilt the game from ground up, just to make a 10-second meme video on YouTube. I don't know. It's not impossible. It's maybe improbable, but
what's kind of interesting is sort of the practical ramifications of this, because there was something similar that came up recently, and I can't remember if he even talked about this, because like Landmark posted a picture of a bug that he had on reserve, where he had like super bright lighting and none of the like dark stuff was in there, and it looked similar. Obviously it wasn't ray traced, but it was similar looking in, I guess, like style, like brightness or whatever. And you always get like a million people coming being just, oh, this looks great, like Tarkov needs to look like this, like, oh, I can't believe it doesn't. And it's like I get that. I understand the sentiment. Like the game probably is too dark.
I think so.
For the most part, right? Like most people who play the game a lot and want to perform well generally change their gamma on their monitor.
Yeah.
The fact that that's like widespread practice is probably a sign that it's too dark. And like, and you compare the screenshots, right? And it's just like on Landsmark's one versus the switch over on this video, and it's like, it's freaking dark, man. Like, I don't want it to look, as you said, the textures look a bit weird when it's super bright. I don't know whether that's an artifact of him doing his own special, like, cook pot worth of whatever like coding he's done. But even on Landmarks one, it was like everything's like super bright, like really clinical, and it's like,
out of
yeah, like
place.
I know that the ray tracing thing, it sort of looks kind of realistic in one sense, but it also looks a little bit like I'm sort of walking through like a spaceship with fluorescent lighting. Like it's too clinical in many ways, and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there is something to be said. Like people can say, "Oh, but it's realistic," and it's like that's fine. But there is also like it's not as scientific as that necessarily, right? There's an artistic style within games and lighting and
yes,
whatever,
yes.
right? And things can look realistic in lots of different ways. And I think that if we got a blend of the two, that would be cool. Like I think a lot of places could be lighter, and especially even in Interchange when there's actual daylight coming through the ceiling. Like yeah, sure, it should probably be lighter, and it would be easy to see people and it'd be less crazy. But there's something about the Tarkov like art style which is like dark and like
Dingy
it's
and
dingy and difficult to
dirty,
see. Yeah, and it's like there's something about
musty.
the psychological impact of that on the player. Like you'd never know where people are. It's kind of hard to see. Even if it's not necessarily realistic,
Right.
there's something about that. Whereas like if in some of those like shots that we've seen, it's like you can see super easily through like the whole mall, like no problem. You
Yeah.
can see someone, and like it
Well,
feels a lot more like I don't know, feels like playing like Time Splitters or something from back in the day.
yeah.
Like there's no environment effects at all. You can see out to as far as you can see. I don't know whether that's necessarily good or
This
bad. I don't really know, but it's just different. It's very different.
this is the thing I'm going to assume is that, let's say it is all done in Tarkov. It's all done in engine. He hacked the game. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I think that the interchange walls actually look like that. If you
They might.
basically, if you don't have lighting, there's sort of like this default. I don't know what it's called technically, but everything is like essentially that landmark screenshot where like there is no lighting and everything's like extremely like 100% vibrancy. I don't even know what you would call it. Brightness maybe. Um, but it looks extremely off, right? It just doesn't look right until you add the lighting. But if you think about this and interchange, you don't really need to see the top of the walls of Idea or
Yeah.
Ollie. So like, why spend time detailing that? Just make it a blank wall. No one's ever going to look there. It's also going to be dark AF. So like, it doesn't really matter. So I wonder if you do the both together. Let's say you do the lighting rework, ray tracing, whatever. I mean that's a whole nother topic. But then you redesign the textures and such materials, maybe even because even like the boxes on like the shelves looked, as you're saying, like very clinical. Like they look too pristine. Because the light was just booming off everything, and so everything was really vibrant. So if I wonder if the added some rust on that stuff, or so add a little bit more detail. I wonder if that would help sort of
Yeah.
make it feel more cohesive with like the Tarkov art style and
Yeah,
whatnot.
I don't know. It's tricky. I think it's funny because it's like I can definitely see the benefits of having it look like that, right? Like we've already seen that. Well, I've been playing Interchange relatively recently, and yeah, with the new audio and with the lighting, like the map's honestly playable. Like it's changed the game in many ways. So
That's good to hear.
like it was so bad before. The lighting is still dark, but it's like it was just not really playable previously. And with the audio being scuffed, it was terrible. With the new audio, it's good, and with the new lighting, like I can play the map and not feel like I'm wasting my life. Which is nice. So I don't
I'm,
know.
I'm gonna play the video while we do this because I gotta show this off. But the this is the other thing, right? Let's say, because here's the other interesting part. Unity, technically, oh boy, this looks really weird. Technically, once we get the engine upgrade, HDR, high render definition pipeline, it has support for ray tracing.
What you
Or
said about this?
yes, so we could see ray tracing. Now, I don't think it's gonna look like the video That's my hunch. But irregardless of that, I don't even know if that's even going to be something anyone's going to want to do. Simply because my frames, if I'm typically ray tracing is not known for its frame rate. It's gotten a lot better.
There are modules now in the new cards that do ray tracing, not specifically, like the 40 series.
Oh yeah, all 20, 30, 40. I think the 40 has some newer.
It probably still affects. It's probably like, I'm a non-expert. It probably affects, the various like CUDA cores and stuff like this. It probably has some over.
There's specifically RT cores, ray tracing cores in the 20, 30, and 40. I think the 40s had something. Oh, I think that's for DLSS. A certain version of DLSS, like the one where you can generate fake frames in between. But anyways, point is, yeah, I think most of those, some maybe AMD cards as well can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's going to be a thing. Like, let's say we do get the feature, and I don't know how it's going to affect interchange lighting. Regardless, are people even going to want to run it? Is the other question.
Yeah.
And then the other question is like, is BSG going to force it? I certainly hope not. But I could see them potentially being like, hey, this is more realistic. Let's force this upon players. I hope that's not the case.
Especially if there's a huge performance impact. I mean, it'd be weird to like not force it though as well, because if they've got like two completely different lighting models, I think that's probably not an approach they'd go down. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know if it's going to look anything like what the video. I'm convinced the video had some added lighting added to the scene, but that's just a speculation. I can get the video to play, but I'll post it in the YouTube description and the podcast description. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention off the back of this, because we just were talking about audio a little bit, was like last time when we did our cast, like I hadn't had a chance to check it out at all. Really, it literally just come out like that morning, all these changes, and I hadn't been able to play except for like a very small amount. Had a bit more time to play with the audio now, and other people have as well. It seems very confusing as to what's good and what's not. I think someone needs to sit down and do a proper scientific test. Like I haven't had the time. It was suggested to me by chat that I should do this, and I thought, well, I would like to, but I don't have the time. I said I'm going to be away. I'm away over the weekend. I'm away all next week. I've been trying to like backload other stuff that's quicker to do. This stuff does not take a short amount of time to do properly. Even the testing takes a long time, and then compiling it all together takes a long time, and blah blah blah. So I just haven't had time yet. But some people did some like basic testing. I watched. So there was the really short version of it. Pestily and Landmark did a bunch of testing on stream. Pestily came to the conclusion. I actually have his tweet up. He actually posted what he thought was like the best based on the testing that he did. He seemed to think that A, the headsets do have different ranges depending on which one they are. B, there seems to be a different range depending on whether a player is going out of your hearing field versus coming into your hearing field. As somebody who's running away, it seems like you hear them for longer than if they're running towards you. So like if they were in hearing range and they're going away, you continue to hear them for a longer time. If somebody's not in your hearing range and they enter in, there's a certain sort of trigger point at which it starts to play, and then you hear them. So it's like closer if they're not within your kind of sphere already. So he basically thought that the Contact 4s, which by the way, the Contact 4s do clearly seem to be the best. They were the best before, right? But they are like by far the best. They're crazy. Also, I don't know I'm not sure what Pestely's character skills were when he was doing this. But yes, he liked the Contact 4s and the XLs. Then the next best, he liked the Tacticals, and then the Fast MT headset. And then in the middle, it was M32, Sword and Razors, and the worst was Contact 2 and the GSSH. Then Landmark was doing testing. Now, Landmark definitely is 51 perception, elite perception.
Mm-hmm.
And he also thought that the Contact 4s were the best. He could hear somebody running with the Contact 4s at 95 meters, which is really far. It's a really long way, which is pretty nuts. He also really liked the Fast MT headset, the rack as well. That also had like a really long range to it. And then all the others basically range somewhere for him between like 95 and 60 meters. I think the GSSH and the contacts were some of the shortest, and then the others were kind of in the center, like Sword-ins and all the attack sports, whatever. They were all at like 70, 80 ish, broadly speaking. Now, I know Jesse did a load of testing. He didn't seem to think there was any difference in the short testing he did, and neither did OnePeg. He also didn't think there was any difference in the hearing range. Don't know what's going on with that. I've not been able to test it myself. I used a bunch of different headsets, so my experience is anecdotal. I used the Contact 4s. They do sound quite bad. I use the GSSHs. They don't sound terrible, but the hearing distance, I think you can probably tell that it's quite short on them now, even though they don't sound that bad. I used the rack headset with the Fast MT. You have to use the Fast MT to use it, so which is kind of annoying. The audio on that for me is so weird and so unusual. I just simply couldn't tell where people were coming from. But I think that's a skill issue.
Ear
I think
issue.
you could probably get used. This is an ear issue. I think you could probably get used to that, but like I just couldn't even tell. Like I was like, I had a kill. I was amazed. I even like the guy fluffed it so badly. I was looking at him, got shot. I turned around completely and then turned all the way back around again and finally saw him and then shot him. And I was just like, man, I can't use this headset at all. This is like just doesn't work with me. I used the Razors a bit. They were okay. And I used the M32s a bit, which Landmark actually thought were quite good. And they do seem quite loud for footsteps, in particular for other players' footsteps. And I used them a bit yesterday, and I can hear people from like a long way with the M32s. So my take from the anecdotal stuff, seeing what people have done, I think if you want the best of the best, obviously you go for the Contact 4. If you want a budget option, then I think you just go for the M32s. They seem to sound a bit like Contacts used to, and the audible range on them is really, really high. Like I heard a player scav on Lighthouse. I was up on this is when I had this crazy fight. I was up on the big tall like Pride Rock or whatever, Stupid Rock or whatever you want to call it, whatever call out. And I heard a player scav like jumping on or like falling off a ledge like miles away towards the south, and like turned around and he's like at the bottom of the hill, like tiny little dot at the bottom. I was just like, dude, I can hear him from so far with these things. It's insane. So M32s is probably my new favorite. But yeah, other than that, Interchange sounds decent. You don't hear anybody in the basement when you're on the ground floor now, which is nice. Upstairs is now like super muffled, so that's obvious that it's upstairs because you just don't hear them. You don't hear them below, and then upstairs is very different to the same floor. So it doesn't really matter what the upstairs audio, whether it sounds like it's upstairs or not. Like it's just different, and so you know that it's upstairs. I had a weird bit on Factory where there was some strange occluding thing. I was downstairs in the basement. Somebody was shooting up in office, and as I kind of like moved towards the corridor, there was like a very hard cutoff between like it being muffled and then less muffled. But I think because of the corridor, so I was. Well, how do I describe it? So I was in like the big room next to the medical tent. If you go down the ramp next to the medical tent, you're in the basement area on Factory, over by the like that. I can't remember what that exit's even called, like the medical tent exit. And I was down in the middle of that room, looking towards the corridor that goes to the pit section in the middle. So we go from where I was through the corridor to the pit, and then on the other side is the office. I was like looking that way, and as I moved left and right, that corridor was giving me like hard cutoffs for occlusion or not, depending on where I was stood. But I could see what they were going for as well, and I was like, okay, like this is a bit scuffed, but like it works. It's just like the transition's not smooth. But that's like kind of interesting. That's actually quite cool. I can see what's supposed to happen here. Like I'm in the room and it's coming from there down the corridor and into my room, and it's really muffled. As I move towards the corridor, the sound's like coming down the corridor now. Now I can hear it better.
Yeah.
But the transition's not that smooth. But it's like that's kind of how it should be. But just
see the foundation starting to be formed. Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, I mean, there's still bugs in places, labs and whatever that weren't fixed, but it's like it's a lot better. The sound seems a lot better. I think we just need to get used to the new headsets. They're all completely different to the way they were before, so you really just have to start from scratch on what you like. You've no idea now. You just have to try them all again. And once we get used to it, I think it'll be all right. So for now, M32 seem to be my go-to, which is nice. And they're only 28K as well.
Yeah, I've always liked the M32. I mean, they're basically like better GSHs, and like the only problem with the GSHs, in my opinion, is the loudness is just a little too harsh. I feel like the Interchange have a little bit of that, but nonetheless. So we did a video, and we wanted, me and Darren, I edited for him, and he wanted me to include some clips from Landmark and Pastillion a couple things, and one of the ones that was from Landmark was I posted in your chat. He is, I can't remember the exact details, but one of the headsets, I think audio's, still a little buggy, it seems, but it looks like when someone's overweight wearing, I think, a particular headset, I think it's the M32s, he can hear them from like 200 meters or something, but only when they're overweight and walking. So I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, they got some kinks to work out, it seems.
Yeah, I think the funny thing about Landmark's one, which is like it's good to see at the extreme end, but somebody like me testing it is probably more sensible in some ways because my perception is probably like 15 or something.
Yeah,
so it's more like,
I mean,
it's more relevant for the average player, I think.
Right, but
who has elite perception?
Should but
no one.
Yeah, but is that a product of his perception, or what is that a product of? Is my
Well, yeah, we don't know. So it's good to test it, right? It's good for BSG and for testing, but for the average player, like an actual video saying like what headset should you use?
Yeah.
Probably better off
I get what you're
saying. That's what I mean. It's more relevant.
Yeah, I get
for,
what
like,
you're saying. Yeah.
performance in game as opposed to like we're beta testing the product.
Yeah.
It depends which angle you're coming from.
On that note, I wish again that they'd have some sort of indication besides Googling the headset name and reading the Wikipedia and the technical documentation of how the headsets work and what technologies are in these headsets that make them good in real life and not good versus the other products of the competition. So that way players can make informed decisions, because if you go, well, just spend more money. Yeah, that works until it doesn't work, until the one thing that's more expensive is actually worse in the game, because that's the thing. But yeah, another gripe of mine.
Yeah, I'm just going to pick up something from chat. Demirio said, I'm not convinced having hearing distance different based on player hours/gear is a good thing. And I agree. I think everyone should hear the same distance. I don't know. I think it's, I don't think it's a clear cut, yes, this is right, no, this isn't right. But my personal take on hearing is that everyone should hear the same distance. I don't think perception, I think even perception is stupid. I don't think perception should be in the game. And that's my own personal opinion on it. Like some people don't think that that's the case and that you should get some other advantages, or that it's okay to have an audio advantage. I just don't think it should be there. I don't think it really does anything. It's not even like there's just not really any like counterplay, right? It's like you can use your just be closer skill issues. It's just like there's nothing like if someone's faster or like you're slow, you're slow. You're like, okay, well I have to be more careful about when I use cover and da da da. Like there's things you can do. If I just like, I just didn't have as much money and I just couldn't hear him, so I died. I just think it sucks. I just don't like it, but it's my own personal, feelings about that particular system.
Yeah, I mean I get that. I can see what BSG's going for. I mean, I think it's just that RPG side of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know what you. I mean, the same argument can be made, like, I don't have enough money. Why does this guy have more money than me? That's not fair. It's like.
I guess like. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? It's like, how do I justify removing making the hearing all the same, but then at the same time, like, make people earn money to buy like better gear? I don't really know. Like, one of them feels okay to me and the other doesn't. I don't really know why. It just.
I mean, it could be the proportions are different. It might be a lot easier to get enough money to buy a headset versus, max perception, but.
Yeah, maybe I think perception to me probably is worse than the headset, because at least you can buy the headsets. They're all on the flea. If you want to get the best audio range, at least you can buy it. It's not like it's locked off behind, like many thousands of hours of gameplay.
Right. It's the work is a lot less comparatively speaking.
Yeah, right. And you're making a choice, but it's like you're sacrificing some economics for that extra range. I mean, maybe I should just use the contact force in every raid and just see if I do better. I mean, maybe I should just do that. Like we've got tons of cash. Like I started just going like, screw it, we're just gonna like spend money, just buy Meldode in every raid and all this stuff. Like my money keeps going up, so I should just do it.
Yeah, but I mean, I get what you're coming from. It's not to say that anyone's right or wrong. I think it's just an approach, So it's I don't know how
For
they.
sure. For sure. It's like,
I think
where do you draw the line? It's like it's exactly, it's like it's completely subjective as to where you take it. It's like if strength made
right.
you run 10 times as fast, that would probably suck, right? We've reduced the strength bonuses for a lot, but they still exist, but they're smaller. Like, how big do the bonuses need to be? It's like, it's very subjective. It's like, is the hearing thing good or not? Like, can there be a bit, or should it be a lot? If somebody could buy, if you could buy a headset that, say it was like even locked behind traders or something, it was like gave you 3 times the hearing, like people would, like, that would probably not be good, right? Well, would that be okay? Like, I'm not. I actually don't even know anymore. I just don't like it, and I'm not really sure why, and I can't really justify it. It just feels bad to me.
Yeah, well, there's definitely something there because I mean, you're having some type of feedback experience, right? Like this doesn't feel fair or right, or there's something there for sure. I mean, I'm leaning towards the fact that you have to spend so much. It's a really long grind, whereas the grind to get good headsets is not that long comparatively speaking. So like maybe if the grind was like 10 raids, would that be more fair? I don't know, but I just overall I would like I like what they're doing. Like I like the idea behind the RPG mechanics. Like your character has certain skills, and I like how you doing the things levels up the things you're doing. Um, like the skills associated with the task you're doing. I don't know what exactly it is. It just needs to be refined a bit more. It's hard to give like good feedback. I wish I could think of something off the top of my head, like another game, for example, that is somewhat similar, but that's kind of thing. Not many
The only
things
thing I
like
can think
Tarkov.
the only thing that's even like that, you do the thing and it gives you levels. It's like Skyrim, right? It's the only sort of
Right.
similar
But
system.
that's in a single player environment, so it's like
Exactly.
you're your own worst enemy. You're not really. Maybe they should
Yeah.
do if that's. I think this thing to figure out, is it a fairness issue or is it something else? Because it's if it's a fairness issue, then maybe it's like you should do skill based, RPG skill based matchmaking. People in the 40 to 51 bracket get matched up together with perception. I don't know.
And then it makes it pointless, right? Then you may as well not have it because everyone's got the same level.
Yeah,
It's just like,
within a range. Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It's just, there's something weird about it. It's like, I can always come back to the example because it's a little bit like this, but less bad. It'd be almost like having like eye perception as a skill, and like your draw distance is just capped at level 1, and it just gets bigger higher up. And like level of 51, you can see someone like, half again as far. So you're just wandering around as a Timmy, and then you just die, and you have no chance of seeing them because you just can't see that far because your draw distance is artificially capped. Like, that would be, people would hate that. So how is this any different with
Yeah.
the audio?
I mean, I honestly think they need some. I think the problem is that it favors the person that can sink in that much time too heavily. Like, like Project Zomboid has very similar systems. Like you level up skills by doing the things, but they have skill regression. I don't know how that mechanic works. I'm guessing if you don't level up a skill enough, like in a certain amount of time, you start losing points, and maybe you can only go past a certain point. I know Tarkov had that in the past, and everyone hated it. I didn't get to experience that, so I can't really say.
Same, actually.
I would like to, because I don't. I feel like that could work, because then I feel like I could justify that. Okay, this guy has max perception. Fine, he works his ass off to constantly maintain that. His other skills are probably shit because of that. You know what I mean? Like he's giving up something. Whereas now it's like the only thing that guy's given up by getting max skills is his life. You know what I mean? Like he's totally he's totally fine spending 5,000 hours grinding that.
That's actually a cool idea, I mean, that's completely different, but like imagine like every sort of amount of XP or something, you got like some points to put into skills. Like this is a completely different system. But it's just like, just for argument's sake, just theory crafting seconds. So you get like a certain number of points to put in, or like every level maybe. You want it ongoing. So maybe just like amount of XP you just get like, because XP is fixed. So you get these points at like fixed rate, and your skills, like the higher that you put points into a skill, the faster it diminishes. So you have to, but like you kind of get the same skill points. Do you know what I mean? Like you always get the skill. You always get a skill point every 5,000 XP. You always get a skill point. But the more that you put into, like maybe you have a hybrid system. So the skills that you use more, they do keep going up more, but they still have the diminishing returns. You get to a certain point, maybe around level 30 or sort of 35 skill points, and even if you're doing strength and endurance every raid, you get to this like balancing point where the diminishing, it's like diminishing as fast as you can gain them at that point.
Yeah,
so to get any more, you have to
I see what
spend
you're
points
saying.
to get up to like, maybe get to 40, right? You can have to spend points to get to elite of these like special skill points, but then it's at the detriment of other stuff. So you have to choose which one. Do you want perception? Do you want elite strength? Do you want elite endurance? And then and I know that would cause some balancing issues too, because everyone just picked like elite strength or whatever. But you then need to, maybe not though. So like, but you could balance it around that system. But that would be cool, because then you have to make some trade-offs. There's only so far you can go with your natural progression of your PMC. Like you get normal progression up until now, that's fine. That would also allow the new players to like boost through the skills a bit more. So you get these extra points. You're already making points from doing all the things that you're doing, and then you get these extra points to spend where you want them on top. But because the diminishing returns is so low at like level 5, 10,
lower
15,
level,
it hardly comes down at all.
Yeah.
That you just like, you whiz up quite quickly to 10, 15, 20, and then it starts becoming slower. You get to 30, 40, and it almost like completely stops. And then you've got these like enhanced points to then like add into the things where you want them to get those things to max. And you get them at such a rate that maybe you could get like 2 or 3 skills at max at most. You'd want the diminishing return to kind of come like every raid in some ways. That would also incentivize people to stay in raid longer and get more skill points too. Because if you just like chain raids over and over and over, you're losing points per raid. And if you leave without like maximizing your skill points or whatever, you're actually gonna like probably go down more. It's not made up for. I don't know. Random theory crafted system off the top of my head.
Yeah,
but it's another one of these things to try
something there.
Give people options. Yeah, maybe. So you can't just have max everything all the time.
Yeah, the way you describe it, I thought of the in my head how I pictured it is like you got all your skills right, and they're basically like tubes or cylinders of that I don't know, whatever, containers, right? They're like, and at the at the bottom you got level 1, at the top you got level 50, but at the bottom there's like some sort of mechanism that essentially leaks whatever you put in there, and then you have this giant bucket of skill points that you're like constantly filling up from going into raids. So then you're like pouring the bucket into certain skills, right? But as you add more water, you add more weight to the, of course your skill, your volume increases and your skill goes up, but now you got more weight in that tube, so the mechanism starts draining skill points that you put in there. So it's like, do I just constantly keep filling this one single cylinder tube that's strength to maintain this strength at the detriment of all my other ones? Or do I just spread it out all evenly, try to keep everything filled up? Maybe I want to do, prioritize these groups more. And I could totally see something like that working. I don't know. There might just be like, there might be an even simpler version you could do, but it's kind of like a hybrid between playtime and linear, completion.
Yeah,
because there's still like an element of like, I want to play more so I can keep my skills up. You know what I mean? And then there's also like a realization it's probably really unrealistic to keep everything completely full because it's designed to be impossible like that. So I don't know. It's an interesting one though.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you could have like 3 or 4 skills at max, or you can have all your skills at like level 47.
Yeah, something like
this.
this.
The elite bonus is probably too much. I'm not sure. But that also kind of suck. Like, do we want people to be rewarded, and if they want to get a max skill, they get to keep it? I'm honestly not sure.
Maybe you could have like, you can't diminish past a certain point. It's something we're thinking about though, because I feel like there's something really interesting there. Yeah. Something to think about, I think.
Cool. Well, I think that's all my topics, to be honest.
Yeah. I think
Did you have
so.
anything else to pop in before we finish up?
No, I was just reading chat real quick. Trying to comprehend stuff on my brain as much. But I think that's it for now. So yeah. That's gonna wrap it up. Shout out to the Discord. Check us out in the description. You're gonna be a part of the ScavTalk community. And otherwise, have a great rest of your morning or even wherever you're from.
Yeah, the next one we probably will do it next Friday, but it may be like early the next week because I'm away all weekend and then all the next week.
Mhm.
So, and then like church is actually off for a little bit after that. So we may end up doing like a sort of staggered cast where we do like 2 casts over 3 weeks, maybe. It depends on how much happens next week and how much
Yeah.
we've got to talk about. Because I'll be literally back from holiday like Friday night after being away from like tomorrow through the whole period for like various things. I'm going to a wedding and then I've got like family holiday. And so we'll see. So maybe we'll do the next one like later. It might be like a Tuesday or something, but we'll just have to see. We're going to play it by ear and figure it out. So yeah, if you don't get your usual copium on the Monday, then don't worry too much.
Your weekly ScavTalk copiing supply has been.
It'll be coming. It'll be coming, but maybe just a little delayed for this next period, just because we've got a few things going on.
Cool. All right. This is Church from ScavTalk signing out. Giga doesn't know what to say.
I don't even know. I was like, what am I even going to like? Normally I say something. You're just going to have to finish it there. Like, I was like, I can't even think of anything like appropriate.
Got him.